Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the delay, but we are excited to get started here. At this point, we will introduce our interpreters at each site. We'll start with the one in Surprise here.
Hello, my name is Gabriela. I am the Spanish interpreter. If you need interpreting services, please come see me. Hola, mi nombre es Gabriela. Soy la intérprete en español. Si necesita servicios, por favor, vengan a verme. Gracias.
Thank you so much. We'll send it over to Flagstaff now.
Hola, mi nombre es Julia Vergara. I'll be the interpreter. If you need any assistance, please see me.
And next, we will go to San Luis.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Angélica Díaz de León y estaré interpretando aquí en San Luis. I'll be interpreting in San Luis. My name is Angélica Díaz de León, interpreting in Spanish.
And then we would go to Kayenta.
We don't have a Spanish interpreter here. We're on the nation.
Okay, thank you. And if you will all join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, hello, everyone. It is wonderful to be here. My name is Erica Newberg. I am the chairwoman of the IRC. We will dive into agenda item number 1, call to order. I now call to order the public hearing. We are here in Surprise and have satellite meetings in Flagstaff, San Luis, and Kayenta. We are also streaming the meetings online via WebEx and will be posting online afterwards via YouTube. We ask that you follow the Arizona Department of Health guidelines in regards to COVID-19. If you are not fully vaccinated, you should wear a mask in a public space. If you would like to make a public comment, you may do so by signing in with staff and filling out the public comment card. We will be taking public comment in a random order. Even though this meeting began at 4:15 p.m., anyone can attend and submit a public speaker card at any time, and we will stay until the last speaker is heard. There's an American Sign Language interpreter and a transcriptionist who will be transcribing every meeting. Please speak slowly and clearly so we have a clear record of your input. Now we are going to introduce ourselves. As I said, my name is Erica Newberg. I'm the chairwoman. I live in the North Chandler area, loving this 202 West Freeway that connects the East Valley to the West Valley. It's really been a game changer. So really excited to be here tonight with you all. I believe I have a couple of colleagues virtually with us. I believe maybe I could turn it over first to Commissioner Lerner if you're able to connect.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Hello, everybody. My name is Shireen Lerner. I am one of the commissioners and I represent Maricopa County. Glad everybody's here.
Be fabulous. Vice Chair Watchman represents Apache County. Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to other introductions of legal and mapping and staff.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Ariano, and I'm one of the attorneys for the commission at Ballard Spar.
Hello. Hello. Madam Chair.
Okay, there's Vice Chair Watchman.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself and let us know where you are.
Like I indicated to everybody, I am here in the Flagstaff Forum. And so audio is loud here. Can you hear me in Phoenix?
We absolutely can.
Okay. We couldn't hear Commissioner Lerner, by the way. So sorry about that, Shireen. It was all choppy. So, but Yate, afternoon. Good evening. I'm Derek Watchman, and as Commissioner or Chairwoman Newberg said, I represent Apache County, and I'm from Winter Rock, and I'm the Democratic appointee to the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission. So it's good to see everybody here. This is my birthplace. My parents actually went to college here, and I was a creation of their college career. So it's good to be here, and I look forward to all your comments. So thank you, and thank you, fellow commissioners.
Thank you. And now I'll turn it back over to our legal staff and just remind everybody to speak up in the mics.
My name is Ryan Regula. I'm from the law firm of Snell and Wilmer, and I help assist the IRC.
Hey everyone, my name is Mark Flahan from the mapping team. I'm our project manager on the Timmins side.
Ivy Beller-Sikansky. I'm with National Demographics Corporation, and I'm one of the demographers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Van Heeren. I am with the IRC. I'm the deputy director. And here we have Parker with Timmins, and then we have our transcriptionist as well.
And now we will turn it over to our team to give a presentation. First up is our legal team.
Good afternoon. As I mentioned, my name is Daniel Ariano. I'm one of the attorneys for the commission, and it's my pleasure this afternoon to give a brief introduction and overview of the structure of our commission and the process for redistricting in our state. We begin with the federal constitution, which provides for a decennial census, which is every 10 years, and requires reapportionment of congressional districts among the 50 states. However, the Constitution leaves it to the states themselves to actually draw those districts within their boundaries as it pertains both to congressional seats and legislative and other districts. In most states, this is done by the state's legislature, and in Arizona, redistricting was done by the legislature as well from statehood up until the year 2000, which is when Arizona voters adopted Proposition 106, which amended the Arizona Constitution to create an independent redistricting commission. The purpose of the proposition was to end the practice of gerrymandering and to improve voter and candidate participation in elections by creating an independent and balanced commission. A new commission is drawn every 10 years following the decennial census. Under the constitutional amendment, the commission is comprised of 5 members, no more than 2 of whom may be from the same party, and of the first four appointments, no more than 2 of whom may be from the same county. The commissioners, some of whom you've been introduced to this afternoon, are our chair, Irc Newberg, Independent of Maricopa County, Vice Chair Derek Watchman, Democrat of Apache County, Commissioner Shireen Lerner, Democrat of Maricopa County, Commissioner David Meal, Republican of Pima County, and Commissioner Doug York, Republican of Maricopa County. The state constitution requires that the commission take into account a number of factors in the process of drawing maps. The first of these is to comply with the United States Constitution and the Federal Voting Rights Act. The next is that all districts are to have equal population to the extent practicable. that all districts are to be geographically compact and contiguous to the extent practicable, that district boundaries shall respect communities of interest to the extent practicable, and also to the extent practicable that district lines use visible geographic features such as city and town and county boundaries and undivided census tracts. And finally, to the extent there's no significant detriment to the preceding goals, that districts be competitive. The Commission very much welcomes and it highly values public involvement in the process. It is, after all, a public, transparent process. Commission meetings are open to the public. Members of the public may submit public comments at those meetings. There's a link on the website whereby public comments can be submitted. The Commission heard robust public input this summer on communities of interest, where members of the public can inform the Commission of what are the geographic areas and neighborhoods that should be considered when drawing maps. And of course, that feedback continues to be welcome. There's also significant input on draft maps. Members of the public can submit proposed maps and also comment on in-progress draft maps prior to the IRC's ultimate selection of a final map. Members of the public may also submit proposed revisions and comments after the IRC has officially selected draft maps, and the public can also submit comments on near final maps, so pretty much at any stage in the process. And with that, I'll turn it to Mr. Flahan. Okay. I will speak more loudly than we are now, but that happened to have come right at the end of my portion of the presentation. The gist of, I think, the presentation is that the Commission, I think if you take anything away from that, is that the Commission very much welcomes public input at every stage of the process. Map drawing is certainly an iterative process that will consider many different drafts and iterations of maps, and the Commission solicits and welcomes comments as well as draft maps and even revisions to draft maps at every stage of its map drawing process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Flahan. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay out there? No.
Speak way in.
Can you hear me now? All right. Basically, we want to talk about 4 different tools that we have that we can put information in your fingertips. The first 2 you probably have already seen: socioeconomic report and the community of interest report. Then we'll talk about those in the next slide. The other 2 that we have is your redistricting system, which allows you, the public, to draw and submit your proposed map changes with the URL there, and then the IRC Mapping Hub, which is really the central location to get any data, mapping, applications, data related. So what is a socioeconomic report? If you joined us on the community of interest tour, you've already seen this slide, but it's basically a statewide web map that's available 24/7 in the IRC Mapping Hub with a bunch of different demographics for the entire state of Arizona. So you should be able to go to any of those demographic points and see a map that's on the right side of how it looks in the state. The second piece from our community of interest tour, we had 910 digital submissions of community of interest surveys. We took those 910 and looked for the amount of overlaps, so common areas of what people have submitted. And we found there's 182 different groups that had commonalities that were submitted. You can see here in the graphic, this is an example of one of them in the Catalina foothills. The darker red area in the middle has the highest number of overlaps. And then there's 5 different categories that goes from dark red to basically a very, very light, faint gray with an outline that shows the least amount of overlaps for that common area. And again, that is on the IRC's Mapping Hub. You can go there and look at it today and see all of the community of interest. If you're more interested in paper maps, there's also a way to print each community of interest or an entire map book. There's also an Excel document up there with all of the paper-based community of interest surveys that were turned in also. So all that data is there at your fingertips. So what is a community of interest? Since we mentioned it a couple times, it's basically a geographic area of common social and economic interests, shared characteristics and experiences, similar issues or impact of government policy, and then otherwise a geographic area with a shared benefit that we want to keep undivided in a single district. So you heard me talk a little bit about the redistricting system. So the redistricting system is available 24/7 online. You can get to it. Anybody can create an account. So you, the public, can go and create an account and draw your own maps. You can see all of the maps that are there in the system. You have access to the same data, the same demographics, the same competitive data that the commission has. So all the data is in your fingertips also. There is a URL there. One thing about the redistricting system, if you want to come and give public comment today and you did submit a map, if you let me know what number your map is, I can bring it up on the screen and we can all see it. To date, we have over 52 maps submitted to us, and we get more every day. So keep them coming. We've heard some feedback on the redistricting system, so we have also made some changes. So we've allowed you to draw now a single district. And if you wanted to do that, you need to scroll down when you get prompted with a template plan and choose Focus Legislative District template or Focus Congressional District template. So this will now allow you to submit a single district without having to draw an entire statewide map. The IRC Mapping Hub, here's the URL of it. So what does it have? It's a centralized location of all the maps, applications, data that we talked about today. It is available on the web 24/7, publicly available, and it's split into a bunch of different sections. There's also a training section on the redistricting system with a bunch of different YouTube videos that you go to, and we've added multiple YouTube videos last week. So the grid map. The grid map was adopted on September 14th, 2021 by the commission. You can see on the left-hand side is the congressional grid map, and on the right-hand side is the legislative grid map. So the grid map was built starting at the township median, which is 19th Avenue and the corner of Grand and McDowell. And then it was built in a clockwise manner from that median. So we divided the state into 4 different quadrants, and then we built the districts in a clockwise manner. And if you want more information on the grid map, you can find that at the IRC Mapping Hub, and that is the direct URL there on the screen. And with that, I will turn it back over to staff.
Thank you, Mark. There are plenty of seats in the front. If anybody can't see, there's plenty of seats right here and plenty of seats right over here so you can see the screen. I will now read the rules of the meeting. Citizens may only speak when recognized by the chair or the presiding officer of the meeting if the chair is absent or has otherwise delegated hearing administration authority. In compliance with Arizona's open meeting law, speakers should confine their statements to the issue on the posted agenda, which is before the commission. Speakers are also requested to limit their comments to approximately 2 minutes. In an effort to allow for as many speakers as possible, the commission may adjust the time limits depending on the amount of speakers requesting to be heard. Additionally, speakers are requested to follow proper decorum. Speakers must use appropriate language. Foul and or abusive language will not be tolerated. Any speaker failing to follow proper decorum or any other guidelines may be asked to leave. Any breach of the peace or disruption of a commission public hearing may be cause of report to law enforcement. If someone has already expressed the same sentiment you wish to express, you may say so and your comments will be recorded. This is a nonpartisan meeting. Please do not distribute political material in the meeting room. Opposing viewpoints may be expressed by the citizens present. As a courtesy, citizens are reminded to address their comments to the chair and to the commission, and not to the audience present. Please show respect for all speakers and avoid personal comments. Remember, the commission must hear all sides of an issue, to make an informed decision. We will now begin public comment. Again, there are interpreters in Spanish and Navajo and ASL for anyone who needs one.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Our first speakers are going to be Mayor Skip Hall, Honorable Chairman of the Action Indian Community, Robert Miguel, Chair Steve Gallardo of the AZ Latino Redistricting Coalition, and Bill Cook, and Giselle Garcia. Speakers, please come up to the mics and line up.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming here to receive input. I'm the mayor of Surprise. My concern is to keep all of Surprise in a congressional district, not to be broken up. And also, when at all possible, the growth in the West Valley is unbelievable, what's going on. And in the next 10 years, it's going to be even more. And I think that from a legislative district standpoint, I think that it could be 2 congressional districts that are in the West Valley, totally, because that's a community of interest, the way I see it. It's geographically contiguous, and we share the same concerns: traffic, water, land use. Those all come into play. Where Phoenix, a lot of it's built out, and the rural community along the Colorado River doesn't share our interests. They're not growing like we are. They don't have the same kind of concerns that we have. So anyway, that's my feedback. I want to keep Surprise in one legislative district, and I'd like to see the West Valley in 2 districts. There's about 1,400,000 people in the West Valley, and I'd like to keep it contiguous in that way. I think our interests would be beneficial. So that's my feedback. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the Redistricting Committee, I want to say in my language, good afternoon to all of you. And again, thank you for allowing me the privilege of testifying or giving testimony on behalf of the Auction Indian community. We're located, if most of you do not know, in the county of Pinal County and near the city of Maricopa. My name is Robert McGill. I am chairman of the Auction Indian community, have been for 8 years. And again, we are currently located in Pinal County. The Auction Council currently has no specific proposal regarding redistricting before it to act upon. I'm here today, however, to let you know that we are closely monitoring your work, the various responses, public comments, submissions, and proceedings. We are actively engaged. The task before you is not easy, an easy one, and we appreciate the opportunity to comment now, and we'll provide more formal comments moving forward. I wanted to come today to let you know that the Auction Indian community appreciates the outreach efforts, particularly those of Vice Chairman Weissman, who has reached out directly to tribal leaders, and we are hopeful that this is an indication that the commission really wants to do work with the tribes. Government functions best when all levels of government are well informed and working towards solution rather than divisions. Tribes are critical partners in that effort. While complex, redistricting does not have to be controversial. Constitutional requirements and communities of interest are key to this. These communities of interest will be, in fact, the most important aspect of the initial process. It is not sufficient, however, to treat tribes all the same of similarly situated. Efforts to lump us all together into one district does not necessarily reflect a community of interest. Splitting any one tribe most certainly creates problems and should not happen unless specifically requested by a tribe. The bottom line is that this commission should listen closely to each tribe individually. Now, just because I'm speaking for my tribe, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm speaking for all tribes. So it's really, really important and key that you reach out to the 22 tribes in general and get their feedback and input. So that's something we would certainly appreciate. For auction, it is critical that the auction Indian community remain together and not be split. We are a farming community, although gaming has become a big play in our revenues and providing services better services for our people. We need the commission and the state overall to understand that we are a farming community. We have been through our beginnings. That's our backbone and who we are as Indian people in Arizona. The farming heritage makes us seem rural, and yet our location near the growing city of Maricopa and our role as the largest employer in Pinal County makes us something more distinct, yet not necessarily urban in nature. Similarly, our ties to our sister tribes might suggest we be grouped with them, the Gila River Indian community, the Kayenta Nation, and or the Salt River Pima Indian community. We are considered the sister tribes of Arizona. Yet the outgoing growth of urban areas in Pinal County brings new demands on our community, and our municipal neighbors are likewise important to us. We are active partners with them in areas like transportation, economic development, infrastructure, education, healthcare, public safety services, and flood control. For all these reasons, we appreciate the difficult task before you and understand the current maps reflect simply a starting point. Like others, we are navigating the grid tool and struggling with what options make the most sense. And in closing, I'd like to add that we do not envy your position, but we'll do what we can to aid you in the development of thoughtful, competitive districts that represent the interests of all of us who call this place home. We look forward to submitting more formal written comments as the process moves forward, and ask in advance that you give them thoughtful contemplation before acting and reaching out to us with questions or concerns as plans are developed. And again, I thank you for the opportunity to come up and speak during your commission meeting. And again, we look forward to working with the state of Arizona in this redistricting effort. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Steve Gallardo. I am a member of the Maricopa County Board Redistricting Coalition. The Arizona Fair Redistricting Coalition has been engaged in since the beginning of the creation of the Independent Redistricting Commission from 2001 and 2011, and once again this year. We believe this is a very critical role that you all are playing, and we wish you the best. We're here to pretty much indicate that we are here to work with the commission. We want to be partners. We want to engage the actual process of the redistricting maps drawing. We have, as you are aware, have submitted a congressional district map that has been submitted, and in the next couple of days we will be submitting a legislative map. I do want to point out, though, that the Arizona Latino population has grown over the last decade. It is now over 30%, and due to various factors, it is very likely that the Arizona Latino population was undercounted during the 2020 census. Additionally, we watched with great interest that the Arizona did not gain a 10th district during the reapportionment process. The coalition has explored whether a third minority Latino congressional district could be obtained. We believe the answer is no. There is belief that the Arizona, thank you, sir. There is belief that the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission is best to comply with the Arizona Voting Rights Act, Voting Rights Act of the United States. We're here to work with the commission to ensure that's obtained. We are hoping that the commission looks at drawing 2 minority Latino districts to preserve and expand the voting strengths of Hispanic citizens' voting age population of its current congressional map. Tonight, I'd like to provide a bit of information about these districts, starting with ones in Maricopa County. The Arizona Coalition created 2 congressional districts, one in metropolitan Maricopa County and one in southern Arizona. The one in Maricopa County is a Southwest Phoenix or Maryvale, are homes of large Latino population, similar social economic status. We are building majority Latino districts in central Arizona. It only makes sense to start with these concentration of Latinos residents, starting with South Phoenix. It follows along South Mountain and a large natural visible geographical feature. You'll see on the map areas that are connected are neighborhoods east and west of Guadalupe and Laveen, South Phoenix, and parts of West Phoenix. These particular areas have similar social demographics, similar household income, property values. There are areas of communities of commonality. These 2 districts, particularly the one in Phoenix, as you see right now, will best represent the Latino community and be able to expand and continue to strengthen the Latino vote, allowing us to select candidates of our choice. Southern Arizona is another area that we focused on. It is a predominantly large Latino population. My partner on this coalition, the co-chair, is Supervisor Adelita Grijalva. I believe she is on the phone now. I'm not sure if she's able to speak on behalf of the Southern District. Is she on? Can we turn that over to her so she can speak on behalf of the Southern Arizona District? Oh, unfortunately, she is online, but let me go ahead and move on. She will be able to speak. I believe she signed up to speak as well. But the Southern Arizona District encompasses, of course, not only Tucson, but the surrounding communities of Tucson as well. It is a district that once again reaffirms the voting rights in Southern Arizona and allow candidates and voters to be able to select candidates of their choice. The map is available. We are here to work with the commission on the congressional and the legislative map. We look forward to entertaining as many conversations as possible to make sure that we have fair representation. But the coalition made it very clear that this particular redistricting map, that 2 Latino minority majority districts would be the best fit to expand and continue the Latino voting strengths in the state of Arizona. If we were able to do a 3rd district, we would do a 3rd district.
Supervisor, thank you so much. Do you mind sharing with us which map number it is? I don't know if you have that. And if you do not have it now, that's fine. But if you could maybe submit that information to the commission so we know what to reference.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, we did submit the map to the commission yesterday. I am not sure if it's been given a number yet, but essentially, hopefully it will be made available online shortly.
We'll look for it. Thank you so much.
And Madam Chair, Commissioners, we will be able to send it directly to you as well, just to ensure that we're looking at the correct map. I appreciate your guys' work. I know it's challenging, a lot of work ahead of you, but the Latino Coalition looks forward to working with the commission and helping any way we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the IRC, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Bill Cook. I am the General Manager for the Recreation Centers of Sun City. We provide 8 golf courses, 8 community centers and fitness centers, 2 bowling alleys, and space for 133 clubs, supporting over 33,000 members who all reside in Sun City. So for those of you not familiar with Sun City, it was started back in the 60s by Del Webb. We're the original Sun City, and it was created by Del Webb to provide a community of interest for 55 and over individuals. So we are a retirement community. Those of you who are not living or who do not live in Sun City, you've probably driven through to go see a baseball game during spring training or heading over to the west. And you've seen the golf carts and have probably wondered, why are there golf carts? So this is a common interest that's associated with Sun City, and it's very limited to Sun City. So this is why I'm here. The 36,000 or so cardholders and members that we have truly are a community. It's probably one of the original community of interest in Arizona. We are a median age of 73. And if you look at a surrounding area of Glendale or Phoenix, the median age is 34 and 31 respectively. Of course, 34 and 31 and 73, there's a lot of different, very different divergent interests. Some of those are economic. Okay? It's a retirement community, so we have many that are on a fixed income. And so there's certainly many different interest there between a 73-year-old and a 31-year-old. There's the health care. I remember when I was in my 20s and got my first job, I traded in all my health care for vacation. Okay, so 73-year-olds, now as a 55-year-old, I look back on that and say, that's crazy. And of course, those folks that live in Sun City, that's very important to them, and healthcare is very important to them. You can even see with the pandemic, I saw it personally, that very much was a common interest to that demographic. And fighting for that, the immunization and getting immunizations was very important to that community. It may not have been for the younger communities who, when we were younger, we all felt like we were invincible, right? And then our activities that we support. In any given day, you will see hundreds, if not thousands of people on our golf courses, in our rec centers, attending a club meeting. And so that in and of itself, if you divide up the Sun City area and have a golf course that may not be in the same Sun City region, there could be some conflicts there. And that includes fitness centers as well. So with that being said, I respectfully ask that you keep Sun City within one district. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Hello, my name is Giselle Garcia, and I am an organizer with Mi Familia Vota, and I'm here to speak on the Latino representation on the grid maps. So I currently reside in Goodyear, Arizona, but I have family and friends who reside in the Avondale-Tolleson area for more than 30 years. The Latino community in Phoenix, particularly the West Valley, is heavily present. And there is an importance in keeping our communities together, but we should not be packed too tightly into one legislative district. We understand that people are arguing against keeping our communities together for partisan purposes. And to this I say, don't bend to this partisan pressure and keep respecting our Latino communities and the Voting Rights Act so that Latinos are proportionally appropriately represented in the maximum number of congressional and legislative districts, allowing for maximum representation in maximum opportunity for communities to elect representatives of their choosing and advocate for shared policy concerns. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
We are going to hand it off to Valerie in Flagstaff.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome. Our very first speaker, we're going to have the Mayor of Flagstaff, Paul Deasy, speak virtually. So if we can get him on the line. Let me know if you'd like to continue until he's ready.
And ask them to speak a little. Flagstaff.
Can you please repeat the name?
I can't hear you, Lori, either.
I'm sorry, that was me. Val, we had Mayor Deasy online, but I don't see him right now. I don't know if he dropped off. Can we go to the next speaker?
Sure.
In Flagstaff? And if you guys can speak a little bit louder, or we can raise the volume here in order to hear you.
Okay, our first speaker is Matt Ryan, Chairman of the Coconino County Board of Supervisors. Next up is Lena Fowler, Coconino County Supervisor, and she's going to be referencing Steve Peru's map. So if the mapping team could get that pulled up, please. And our third speaker will be Waylon Honga, who's representing the Yavapai Tribe Chair.
There we go. Okay, does that work well for you, Madam Chair? Sound-wise? I'm just going to assume and move on then. Okay, as noted, I'm Matt Ryan, Chairman of the Coconino County Board of Supervisors, and thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Weissman from the region, as well as fellow commissioners. You have a very difficult task ahead of you, and we compliment you on your service to our state. The Coconino County Board of Supervisors has submitted proposed congressional and legislative maps after much study and deliberation. They are map numbers LD0013 and CD0016. The legislative district map focuses on legislative district 6 and 7. Vice Chairperson Fowler will speak to the legislative district 7 map, and I'll speak to the district 6 map. All the legislative districts have been balanced with the 5% deviation and follow the guidelines of Proposition 106. The legislative district 6 map in particular focuses on rural communities. The inclusion of the Verde Valley as a community of one, communities of Sedona, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Camp Verde, and Jerome, as they share a common interest in the watershed and forest fire prevention. The entirety of Sedona and Flagstaff into one legislative district with no splits. We'd like to see cities kept whole. This district proposed is a competitive district. The congressional district map also includes a balance within the plus or minus 5% deviation and follows the guidelines of Proposition 106. It protects several communities of interest. The map takes into account the rural nature of the communities comprising CD2, hence its size for the rural component. To that end, the CD2 adds the copper and cattle communities' interests, Globe, Superior, Kearney, and parts of Casa Grande. Interest was expressed during the listening tour that the copper cattle communities be included in the rural district. The map removes Prescott and Prescott Valley from CD2 because the IRC listening tour testimony shows that the Prescott interests do not align with the other cities and communities drawn in CD2. The CD map pays particular attention to Native American populations. It includes the Native American communities of the Navajo Nation, Hopi Tribe, Yavapai Apache, San Carlos Apache, Tonto Apache, Zuni, Havasupai, San Juan Southern Paiute, White Mountain Apache. A portion of the Hualapai community, we mistakenly left the western portion of the Hualapai community out of our CD map and will amend our map accordingly to include the entire community. Therefore, it protects the Native Americans under the Voting Rights Act by including as many contiguous Native American tribes as possible in CD2. Both of these maps incorporate a shared interest in major public policy issues, including watersheds, forestry, ranching, agricultural, and regional economic development, to name a few. We believe strongly that these maps fairly represent the Northern Arizona region and ask that you give them your serious consideration. Again, we thank you for your commitment to public service. Thank you.
And I've just been notified the Flagstaff mayor has another commitment, so we will hear from him another time.
Yate. I'm Lena Fowler, Coconino County Supervisor. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Mr. Watchman, and fellow members of the commission. Thank you so much for your team, for your work on behalf of our state. I am the Vice Chair of the Coconino County Board of Supervisors, and I will be speaking to the Legislative District Map 7. The map number is LD0013. We made sure that the map follows the guidelines of the Proposition 106. And with the knowledge that the tribal communities, the tribes that live in the region, predate the establishment of the state of Arizona, where they live, farm, ranch, hunt today. So we kept the Navajo Nation and other tribal communities within the district whole. The district map also focuses on rural communities. The national monuments, including Grand Canyon, the Colorado River, Oak Creek Canyon, forests, petrified forests, Monument Valley, Antelope Canyons, and Walnut Canyon. Protection of Native Americans and other minority groups under the Voting Rights Act. This legislative district map raises the Native American population. The board engaged thoughtfully in the development of these maps and ensured that all of the IRC guidelines were adhered to. We urge you to take our maps under serious consideration. And we look forward to continued conversation. Thank you.
Gamija, Anga, Abajma, Nachia, Wayland, Honga, Octaguila, Yuya, all by Tokia. Thank you to Chairwoman Newberg and the commissioners of the IRC for hosting this hearing. My name is Wayland Honga. I'm a former council member of the Yavapai tribe, and I am speaking on behalf of Chairman Clark and the Yavapai tribe. Representation for tribal communities is critical for representation in Congress and at the Arizona State Legislature. And we hope you seriously consider the input you are receiving tonight and in writing from the tribal communities in Arizona. The Yavapai tribe encompasses nearly 1 million acres along 108 miles of the Grand Canyon and Colorado River. Our land touches 3 Arizona counties, Mojave, Yavapai, and Coconino. I'm speaking today because the grid maps give us cause for concern. The grid map configuration splits the Yavapai community in half, and we should be kept whole and connected to other tribes in our area. We know that the grid maps are already under adjustment, and so we submit these requests for adjustments that will greatly improve our representation. Many of us are requesting the same thing, that you keep our communities in northeastern and central rural Arizona together, because we are connected and work together to advocate for our issues. These tribes often contend with similar economic interests, environmental preservation, and water issues that touch most rural regions. The following tribes should be kept within a single legislative district: our own tribe, the Yavapai, should be connected to the Havasupai tribe, the Kaibab Paiute tribe, the San Juan Southern Paiute tribe, the Hopi tribe, the Navajo Nation, the White Mountain Apache tribe, and the San Carlos Apache tribe. We know that this legislative configuration will need additional population, and the commission should add the Verde Valley so that the Yavapai Apache Nation can also be connected to this district. The following tribes should be placed within a single congressional district connected to the Wallapai tribe: the Havasupai tribe, the Kaibab Paiute tribe, the San Juan Southern Paiute tribe, the Hopi tribe, the Navajo Nation, the Yavapai Apache Nation, White Mountain Apache tribe, the San Carlos Apache tribe, Gila River Indian Community, and Auction Indian Community. These are all rural communities that need to be able to approach a single congressional official. Our community has been made aware of a map proposal from Coconino County that seeks to split our community and the Havasupai tribe. The eastern part of our tribe drawn into a district with the greater Flagstaff area, separating our communities from the rest of the tribes in the northeastern part of the state. In this draft, the western part of our tribe is connected to completely unlike communities of Kingman, Lake Havasu, and Bullhead City. We oppose such a configuration, as it would leave us unrepresented at the state legislature, split between two legislative representatives and drowned out in both districts by rural and urban voters that do not vote as we do. Tribal representation at the state legislature has been a critical voice for our communities and our greater region. We cannot and will not see that representation ripped away from us. I want to end with this emphasis. On both the legislative and congressional maps, our primary concern is effective representation through strength in numbers. We understand, Chairwoman, that you have been interested in learning more about how minority communities can best ensure that they are heard by their elected officials. In our legislative configuration, these tribal communities are able to elect a representative of our choosing to represent tribal communities. At the congressional level, we seek to maintain a level of influence that can only be achieved if we are united and kept whole with the other rural tribes that stretch between the northeastern and central rural areas of our state. We have outlined our recommendations in a letter as well that we submitted on September 30th. Again, thank you for your time.
Our next three speakers are Miranda Sweet, James Gregory, and Austin Allen.
Thank you. My name is Miranda Sweet, and I serve on the Flagstaff City Council. Thank you to the Commission for the inclusive and thorough public engagement process. The City of Flagstaff asks that you keep the city intact and do not split the city among multiple districts. We are encouraged that Flagstaff is intact in both congressional and legislative grid maps. The City of Flagstaff would welcome an outcome that recognizes the greater Flagstaff as a community of interest. We would also like to re-emphasize that Indigenous communities represent clear communities of interest. The values and needs of Indigenous communities, as articulated by Indigenous peoples and leaders, should be strongly considered by the IRC during the redistricting process. Thank you for your time and consideration.
James Gregory. I'm a Yavapai County Board of Supervisor for District 2. I strongly would encourage the Independent Redistricting Commission to keep all of Yavapai County into one district. We strongly oppose splitting up the district like Coconino proposed. I oppose any split within the county into two regular districts, and it just creates divisiveness within the county and our constituents. District 2, one of the proposals shows they going down I-17 splitting communities. We want to avoid that. We want to keep it just like the proposed map is all of Yavapai County to include Sedona. Sedona split by Coconino and Yavapai, but we'd like to have that all included in one district, and one district being Yavapai County. The Arizona Constitution states that the extent that the practical district lines shall use geographic features such as cities, towns, counties, boundaries, and undivided census tracts, why would we split any of our towns and communities? We want it to stay whole. We'd like to see all of one legislative district in Yavapai County, which includes all of Sedona. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Austin Aslan. Someone said Allen, but that was probably because of my poor penmanship, so I apologize. I am a city council member with the city of Flagstaff, wrapping up my first term, and I have to tell you, first and foremost, that I feel a little nervous being up here, and I'm reminded, after having spent the past 3 years sitting up on the dais and watching public speakers come up, what a brave thing that is to do. And I just want to take a moment to thank everyone in the public for participating and speaking out and doing your part to speak truth to power. I'm here today representing the city of Flagstaff. You know, with our city council, we do not have at-large districts. We are representing the entire community of Flagstaff, and it would be really weird for our city to be split into a variety of different legislative and congressional districts. It just wouldn't work so well. And so I'm here to say today, just to reiterate what we've already heard from some other folks. We very much value remaining in a whole community, and we are encouraged that Flagstaff is intact, both in the congressional and legislative grid maps. That's a great start. Let's keep it that way. And we've also communicated in our letter to you that we would welcome an outcome that recognizes the greater Flagstaff area as a community of interest. We continue to ask that the greater Flagstaff area be kept whole in any legislative and congressional districts, and that the current legislative District 6 be expanded to include the rural areas as part of Flagstaff. You know, we really desire an outcome that values unified communities of interest, and Flagstaff has several of those. In terms of forest health and in terms of the community that our hospital services, these things are very important to us. The way that we legislate a positive impact on the ecosystems in our community. We host Grand Canyon tourists, and we have a strong interest in improving interconnected economies with investment in infrastructure, shared transportation corridors, and shared workforce development. And these things are all part and parcel of Northern Arizona. We're a tight community. We operate together, and we should be kept together. So thank you very much.
Now we'll move over to San Luis.
I was asked by our mayor to mention that he is online right now and able to speak, if it's not too late for that. I'm sorry I forgot that at the end there.
Okay, Mayor, are you there, Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you letting me jump in here. Well, I just want to say, good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Deasy, and it's my honor to serve as the mayor of Flagstaff. And I want to thank the Independent Redistricting Commission for these opportunities of public engagement and the process that has been implemented so far. As we know, the work of the IRC is incredibly important and represents a unique opportunity for Arizonans to share their values and concerns in shaping how our districts are redrawn. Speaking on behalf of the Flagstaff City Council, we are encouraged to see that the grid maps recognize the greater Flagstaff area as a community of interest. And we continue to ask that the greater Flagstaff area be kept whole in future versions of the map, as residents in this area experience the same challenges and utilize the same resources. It is critical that we have a united voice when we go to the polls. Additionally, I would like to reiterate that the Flagstaff City Council would value Flagstaff being placed in a district with other communities that share the same values, concerns, and resources, such as forest health, watershed protection, healthcare, and responsible tourism. thank you all for being here this evening and for sharing your perspectives in this community. The public comments really do help inform the commission of important values and concerns that are apparent in our community. So thank you to the Independent Redistricting Commission and all the public participants tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Now we will head over to Marie in San Luis.
Thank you, Val. I have 3 speakers in San Luis. I have Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors for Yuma County, Africa Luna Carrasco, Vice Mayor of the City of San Luis, and Jesse A. Lugo.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you. I want to start off by actually thanking the board for the excellent job, and I know a tough job you guys are tasked to do. And second, thank you for listening to us and having opening up San Luis South County for an opportunity to make a comment. First of all, I want to talk about the district itself, and I'm talking about. Well, first of all, let me talk about Yuma in itself. It's sort of weird to listen to all the comments talk about not splitting up cities or towns and then stand up in front of you and ask you to do so with Yuma. I was not much of a fan of splitting up the city of Yuma in 2 separate legislative districts and 2 separate congressional districts, but I'm stunned to be able to stand up here and say it has worked. So, contrary to what has been said before, for Yuma itself, for the county of Yuma, which is 63% Hispanic, the majority of the Hispanic population, though, is located mostly in South County, which is where the center of which you're having a hearing on today. So it just makes a lot of sense to not mess with something that has worked. I've seen the population grid maps that you have available to us, and you don't split up Yuma at all. You keep it together in one single district. Well, that may sound in some ways logical and reasonable. In our particular case, we're asking you to take a second look at that and actually try to keep communities of interest, which in this case, South County being one of them, and the eastern portion or the northern portion of Yuma County being another one. It has worked well. So I'm just here to sort of reiterate that essentially for us, what we have right now, which is actually 4 legislative districts, 2 senator districts, and 1 congressional district, it's worked for us well. So I'm here just to tell you, please try to keep that in mind when you do your job. And again, I appreciate a lot of the work that you guys do. And again, thank you for allowing us here in San Luis to have an opportunity to address you. Thank you.
Hello, Chairman, members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to speak this afternoon about the redistricting process. My name is Africa Luna Carrasco. I currently serve as the Vice Mayor for the City of San Luis. I'm born and raised in this city, so I understand it's the community of interest, which is important to all of our residents. We are a predominantly Hispanic community. We are a border town. The governor has even referred to us as the boom town, Arizona, because we are growing rapidly. As of the last census, our population was approximately 36,000 residents. So I'm just here this evening to ask you that you keep the districts as are, because I feel that that would provide equal representation in both the legislative and the congressional districts. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jesse Lugo. I'm from Gaston. I'm PC 28. And I support my candidates from Yuma, Somerton, Gaston, and San Luis. And I like those districts to be the same. Why? Because I know all the working list, how I do with my candidates. I don't want my candidates to be right the side, being supporting each the same districts. So please, these are the same districts, how they are. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Michelle in Kayenta.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners and those of the listening audience. Here in Kayenta, I do have two speakers. The first speaker is Priscilla Weaver, and the following speaker will be Janie Parrish.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners Watchman, Newberg, Lerner, Mel, and York for allowing me to share my comments this evening, October 6th. I am from Tisasmas, Arizona. Is the sun and Sean, Kodokoja Bashichin, since a card ni Edashiche, do Ashin he Edashinali, what Ashik Ehodno, a Kehen Hitidation Shiaj, Mr. Watchman, Tassin, Dahagi Bakinson, Njone, what out, Dahinix on Dahinix on Jongoshi redistricting Bandi Bakinson. I'd like to thank Vice President or Vice Chair of the Commissioner Shiaj Derek Watchman for sitting on this committee, to listen to us and to understand our concerns and our message that we want to share with the commissioners of the Independent Redistricting Commission. I live in Tisaspas, Arizona. If you look at the Arizona map, it is the far north and as far east as you can get in the state. And I have a lot of community interest with the people on the Navajo Reservation. We have many concerns because we are a rural community, we are indigenous community, and we have many same interests as the indigenous people of the state of Arizona. And because of that, I would like to share my comments about the district maps that was drawn and that I will be submitting that this evening. And they are hard copies, the legislative map and the congressional map. I support the Voting Rights Act and Native American Indigenous Voting Bloc. The Native Americans in the state of Arizona, people living on sovereign lands, and the population is higher, and I believe that the population that was reported is higher than the 2020 census data. Why I know that is because I live on the Navajo Reservation. I live about a half a mile off the main highway. And we were visited many, many times, more than 5 times, collecting data. And there were other people that live more than half a mile from the main highway that were not visited. So please revisit the census data that was reported. I believe that there was an undercount in the census reports in Arizona. Adding size to LD7 will reduce and dilute the Native American indigenous voters, creating unfair representation in the Arizona legislative lawmakers. It is very important that we as indigenous people are represented in the state legislators. Thank you. The current LG and CD maps are fair and competitive. Maps are fair and competitive, giving better governance in the state of Arizona. These are the current LG and CD maps. With any changes and with the undercount, we will not be able to have fair representation. So please, commissioners, revisit the data and make sure that all the indigenous sovereign people are represented. We want to maintain our rights to vote fairly as required by the Voting Rights Act. I believe that we do have human rights to vote, and please keep us in your decision making. Democracy is important to all USA citizens, and as Americans, we need to protect our human rights to vote in all elections. Great. Yate, Janie. Tate, Janie Parrish and Chet, the Bethlehem, the Schleck, Ashim, Bashashim, Nakaidnik. So the first thing I would like to say is these paper maps have been really helpful up in this area because we have little to no internet and connectivity, and this was the only way that me and my family were able to submit our maps. We were not able to do it online, and so we're trying to encourage other community members to do the same. So please be aware of that the paper maps are really needed in tribal and rural areas. I'm not going to say too much different than what everybody else was saying because I did write it all down. But essentially, I also agree that there's been an undercount in the census, and that really has to be looked at. And I'm not sure how that will affect our population in the mapping, but it really concerns me. Also, we just want fair maps and representation, ensure Native people and tribal communities are fully represented. And that I would also like to see the current district maps also remain the same. Not the grid maps that were drawn out, but the ones we've had. And I feel like this is already aligned with the current Voting Rights Act, and it really amplifies Native voices that should be represented and heard. So keep tribes intact. Don't break up tribal voting power, especially knowing that CD1 is the most Native district in the whole tribes and more. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, with that, I have 26 submittals of hand drawn maps and comments. Thank you. We'll send it back to Surprise.
Lita will be joining us via WebEx.
All right, can you repeat that name one time?
The first name was Adelita Grijalva, or Grijalva.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the time. Chairwoman Newberg, members of the commission, thank you for inviting me to speak tonight on behalf of the Arizona Latino Coalition for Fair Redistricting. Thank you for your service to the state of Arizona. We know this process is a major time commitment. My name is Adelita Grijalva. I'm a third-generation Arizonan, lifelong resident of Tucson, and live in CD3, LD3, and unincorporated Pima County. As president of the Tucson Unified School District and vice chair of the Pima County Board of Supervisors, I'm here to speak for the legal need under the Voting Rights Act to protect both the Arizona Justice Department approved Hispanic Voting Rights District and Latino representation for Southern Arizona. I have spoken before you on September 6th and September 29th and appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm proud to represent the Arizona Latino for Fair Redistricting Coalition, a statewide coalition of Latino leaders and community members that has formed to advocate for Arizona's growing Latino community during the redistricting process. Our primary objective is to work collaboratively with the Commission to ensure compliance with the Voting Rights Act and that the voting strength of the Latino community is protected in this redistricting process. As you're probably aware, our coalition recently submitted a congressional map with 2 majority Latino districts. One is Phoenix-based and the other is anchored in Pima County in Southern Arizona. We have formed our coalition to help advocate for Arizona's growing Latino community, and Southern Arizona has a large and vibrant Latino community that has benefited greatly from having the ability to elect a candidate of choice. The map submitted contains a majority Latino Southern Arizona district with a majority of the population in Pima County. Community interests make Pima County Latino community deserving of a Voting Rights Act district. We achieved that goal with our maps with 50.24% of our district coming from Pima County. We kept the split with minor adjustments over polarizing voting patterns, and split created the Voting Rights Act numbers needed for compliance. The district keeps the majority Latino Santa Cruz County whole in a voting rights compliant district. Yuma County is split to ensure compliance with the Voting Rights Act, removing areas of highly polarizing a highly racially polarizing voting. The coalition took great caution in drawing the split within the city of Tucson. The split recognizes the important communities of interest and incorporates areas with the highest concentration of Latino population. We believe any attempt to go much further into the city of Tucson than we have outlined in this map would not serve the purpose of compliance with the Voting Rights Act. In Pinal County, we kept our map keeps the Tohono O'odham Nation whole, incorporates some additional population west of Interstate 10 that includes the Latino population. The goal of the Pinal lines was to keep the Huichu village and the rest of the Tohono O'odham Nation and not isolate them from their farming and agricultural neighbors. One important component of our map is in Maricopa County. If Arizona would have received a 10th congressional district, they may not have been a need to incorporate any Maricopa County population in this district. However, in a 9-district map, we believe it's necessary that a portion of the district includes the West Valley communities with a large Latino population. West Valley lines, as proposed, bolster the Voting Rights Act numbers while removing large sprawl, future growth, and large Anglo voting areas that could impede Voting Rights Act compliance. Our map was drawn with the principle of removing high growth areas in Buckeye and Goodyear and adding communities of Avondale, Tolleson, and small portions of Phoenix and Glendale. We look forward to continuing the conversation with the Commission, working together towards maps that comply with the Voting Rights Act and the Arizona Constitution. The district must include the Pascua Yaqui and Tohono O'odham nations of Pima County, including San Luis in Southwest Pinal County, as well as Old Pascua, and the urban Yaqui neighborhoods predating the recognition of the tribal nation off Grant Road. Santa Cruz County should stay with Pima County. Our coalition again looks forward to our continued engagement with the Commission as we strive for an equitable, legally defensible, and representative congressional and legislative maps. Thank you so much for your time this evening and for your continued service.
Thank you for taking the time, everybody, the public, all of your submissions, and a gentleman, mentioned people taking the risk of standing up and sharing thoughts, and sometimes it may not even be comfortable. But all of this information is so valuable, and we're so deeply appreciative of the citizens of Arizona for taking the time to do this. Thank you.
My turn. Chair Newberg, Commissioners Lerner and Watchman, thank you for the opportunity today to speak directly to the Commission. My name is Lynn Peters. I have lived in the city of Surprise for 21 years. Surprise has changed dramatically over those 21 years and continues growth to the west and north. My primary request is that Surprise remain whole in a single CD and LD. Currently, Surprise, along with Sun City West and parts of northern Peoria, are in grid map CD9. This CD is geographically mostly rural, while the communities of Surprise, Sun City West, and Peoria are urban and densely populated. Our issues and interests are dramatically different from rural cities and towns. We do not relate to Lake Havasu City, Kingman, Bullhead City, Lake Mead, Mojave City, or the Colorado River Indian Reservation, all grouped with Surprise, Sun City West, and Northern Peoria in CD9. Because Surprise, Sun City West, and Northern Peoria are not compatible with the other communities in grid map CD9, CDs 7, 8, and 9 need to be modified. CD8 needs to move north to include Surprise, Sun City West, and parts of North Peoria. Adjustments to neighboring CD7 and 9 should make this possible. While I certainly agree that it is critical that rural voices are heard by our representatives, I believe that including densely populated urban cities with rural communities seriously dilutes the message of those rural communities. Maricopa County communities in Metro Phoenix should not be grouped with Mojave County communities so that their population requirements are met. That is a disservice to both groups. Metro Phoenix communities should be grouped with other Metro Phoenix communities. Surprise has been placed in grid map LD 29. While this LD is an odd shape and the grouping of communities is really quite good, I specifically ask that you be certain to keep the Surprise Heritage District intact within a single LD. This is a close-knit Hispanic community bounded north-south by Bell Road and Greenway Road, east-west by El Mirage Road and Dysart Road. I would also like to state that I am in support of the LGBTQ community as a community of interest and hope that the Commission will thoughtfully review the EQAZ maps that have been submitted by that community. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Commissioner and Commissions. My name is Bonnie Angster. I have lived in Sun City for 27 years. It is my full-time residence. It is my home. Over the years, my efforts have been made to seek the welfare of Sun City as I am doing so now. Upon hearing the proposal to divide Sun City at Bell Road, placing the city in two separate congressional districts, I stand in opposition to such an action. The northern part of Sun City has no identity with a rural area, nor does the southern part of Sun City have an identification with Metro Phoenix. Let me detail the uniqueness of Sun City. It is an active adult retirement community of nearly 38,000 residents, according to the 2010 census. The average age, 75, desiring like-minded amenities. Many residents are now on fixed incomes, enjoying the benefits of affordable housing. Close by, healthcare, facilities, and a camaraderie of age-related activities for recreation. Often outside communities look upon Sun City that we are nearly all wheelchair bound. That is not true. We're not dead yet. Thank you. Right. The emphasis is active adults contributing to the city known as the City of Volunteers, and active adults contributing to other parts of the surrounding communities as well, including myself. I actually work with the Air Force people from Luke Air Force Base. Many of the residents are civic-minded, aiding to the self-government of the Sun City, which is an unincorporated community. Sun City boundaries: north, Beardsley; to the south, Olive Avenue, is a contiguous community. Let me say that again. It is a contiguous community. As a retirement community, we no longer are raising families. We have little in common with the split that is proposed with surrounding suburbs. It is in the best interest of Sun City to be placed together in one whole community, in one congressional district and legislative district. I urge the board to keep Sun City intact, enabling residents, remaining strong in supporting one another in the years to come. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Claire Van Steenwyk, a retired former executive in the food industry. I handle marketing, logistics, and demographics throughout all of California. And all I will say is what the young lady just said behind that spoke just previous to me, I agree with. When you start taking certain districts, especially in the West Valley, and breaking them apart, like Sun City, where everybody goes to the same clubs, same meetings, same everything, it'd be kind of like taking a school and dividing it into first through third and fourth through sixth, and you can't play together anymore. It doesn't work. It never will. The same is true of LD 29 now, or what was LD 22. You finally brought back Sun City Festival into the home where I used to live, and I had to move from to get back into LD 4, which is now 22, because quite frankly, the distance from where LD 13 met was too far for most people in Sun City Festival to go to the meetings. But the same is true of Tartesso. You've now decided to put Tartesso into LD 29, which is almost 30 miles away from here, when a much better fit would be to put it in LD 23. And you've also taken some of the northern part of Biscuit, or whatever that's really called up there, and stuck it in LD 29 while taking away something just north of Sun City West. That you've given to somebody else and you shoot us farther up north. It makes no logistic sense at all. And I did this for a living. But one thing that has disturbed me, and that's all I'm going to say about this, one thing that has disturbed me in sitting through this, because I had other things I wanted to say, is I've listened to a number of speakers come up here and talk about locations, and we need 2 congressmen, and we do in the West Valley. I have no doubt of that because of the growth. And other mentions of Sun City West, surprise. I agree with all of that. I've heard from all of these people talk about logistics, demographics, like-minded, this and that. And then I've heard another group of people talk about we need special districts just for ethnic mixes. I don't know how, with good conscience, everybody can forget what we're supposed to be about. I was born in the 40s, lived through the 50s and 60s. I was raised in a community that was not segregated in California. I went to school with Asians, non-Hispanic, non-Black children, and Hispanic children. We didn't have any Blacks in that community that I know of in that part of California, although they did move east from LA now. We weren't segregated. We got along with each other. We voted together. We had potluck dinners together in our churches. I take exception to people asking us in a constitutional republic to once again segregate us by saying these people have to live here so we can get representation. That is not a true fact. I don't find it to be a fact in Sun City West where I live. We have a number of Hispanics and Blacks and Asians living there. We all get along very well, even though we may disagree politically on certain issues. The same is the truth about California when I finally left there. But for a board to decide that you need to carve out special interest groups because of somebody's former nationality is abhorrent to me as an American, because that's what I am. My ancestry comes from Europe, but I am an American. I'm not a hyphenated American. And I believe for any board, group, or set up a group of people to decide that you need to carve out some little niche somewhere in this country or in the middle of a city to once again reinstitute segregation, political segregation, is wrong. It's not the American way. It's not we the people. Remember, we are equal. If you want something changed, run for office, as I have done. I will say this to you. I know in LD 22, where I now live, we don't have one representative that's retired, even though that person, these 3 people, represent a whole lot of retired people. Not very well at times, but they were elected. That's how that works. That's a representative government. We are not supposed to be segregated by race or, once again, even by sex.
Can we have the next speaker, please?
Pardon me?
All right, I will remind the audience that you are to follow proper decorum.
I didn't hear what you said, ma'am.
It just said that was your time. Can you wrap up and we'll
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up right now.
Sure.
That's my only point. I hope all of you keep in mind that what makes our country great is our differences. And the best way for that to make us one again completely is to join together, live together, discuss things together, possibly not always agree, but please don't segregate us into little voting blocks where politicians, quite honestly, get control, and we all of us, no matter the color of our skin or whatever else you want to call us, don't get treated fairly. Don't pit one person against another. Let us look as a block, as Americans and Americans only. That's the only way this country is going to move forward. God bless you and thank you for your time.
Thank you. We hear everyone. So please, next speaker, thank you. We hear you.
Pardon me?
I am just saying we hear each and every speaker. Next speaker, thank you very much for sharing. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, my name is William Graves. I believe I'm the only speaker up here so far as not representing somebody, some organization, or some political viewpoint. I'm here as an individual. Today I found out there was this meeting. Wasn't very well advertised. The public doesn't know about it that much. They don't know what you're doing. I was very surprised that my community, which is Sun City West, and a good portion of the Western Valley, has been combined with a extremely large area that is completely different in structure. And yet we're expected to have the same representative. I don't believe this is an effective way of getting representation to the individuals of both areas. The two major counties, La Paz and Mojave, are completely different from the Western West Valley here. I'm concerned that the effective representation will not be there. Primary interest or best interest somebody can have is self-interest. And I'm afraid that that can be carried on to an extreme. Somebody who comes from one of these counties does not have the same viewpoints. They don't have the same exposures on a daily basis to know what is necessary. Conversely, somebody in the Western Valley here certainly is not going to know what the needs for somebody in Lake Havasu or Mesquite. I don't believe they're going to be effective either way. I believe this plan needs to be modified. And I ask you to consider doing so. Simply because I believe the effectiveness of representation simply will not be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And, you know, as we're discussing these lines and, you know, it's deep and it's intense, let's all remember the grid map that the commission approved on September 14th is entirely arbitrary based on equal population. And the commission has barely begun adjusting the lines. So the information is so helpful, but you don't have to be worried that these are anywhere representative of final lines. So I just wanted to reassure everybody that this is a work in progress and we have many, many more days of deliberation to be incorporating the very feedback we're hearing. With that, I don't know how many more, we're going to have a break. So with that, we'd like to give our transcriptionist a 5-minute break, the public as well. We'll reconvene, and then we will resume speakers here and in our satellite location. So 5 minutes, please.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, sir. I would like to just shake your hand. Yeah.
over to Flagstaff. And so I don't know, Flagstaff, Val, if you can hear me, I want to reiterate that there are interpreters at every single location. And so if anybody needs an interpreter, please see one of a member of our staff. Thank you.
Not everybody.
And I don't know if Flagstaff heard me, but we are getting started. And we're going to throw it over to Flagstaff now.
Thank you. Our first speaker, we have Holly Plug, Kathy Kinsella, and Michelle James.
Thank you very much. My name is Holly Plug, and I'm a council member for the city of Sedona. And nice to see you again, Chairwoman Newberg and Commissioner Lerner. I testified in Prescott, and I really want to thank you for your listening to what we had to say about the difficulty in using the system and for the changes that you made, allowing for single district maps and some other things that we had asked you for. We really, really appreciate that you heard us and you quickly adapted the system to make it much easier for the public to be able to comment, and to send maps and paper maps as well. We really appreciate your work. And I've been listening to the meetings this week where there was a lot of progress made in Northern Arizona. And I think it's really headed in the right direction. This is important and historic work, as you know. And it's clear that you've been listening to our constituents. When we testified in Sedona during the listening tour, the vast majority of the local residents who spoke really emphasized the communities of interest to include Sedona and the Verde Valley and Flagstaff. And the maps that you're working on recognizes those communities of interest. So thank you very much. And we hope they stay that way as you work towards your final draft maps. My colleague Kathy Kinsella will be reading a statement that was approved by the Sedona City Council this past week, communicating the necessity to keep Sedona within one congressional and one legislative district. It would be devastating to our small community to be in two legislative districts as the grid map indicates, but as I said in Prescott, I know you will take care of that. And that was just that the grid maps were drawn around county lines. We also think it's important to keep cities together in districts wherever possible, and knowing Phoenix and Tucson are not possible, Flagstaff is, and so we support keeping Flagstaff together as a whole city in one district. We ask that you continue to adhere to the request of the city of Sedona to put us together with communities in the Verde Valley and the Yavapai Apache Nation. We have a working group we meet on every month. It's called an InterGov, and we work on issues that are common within our communities. And so to be in different legislative or congressional districts would really impede our ability to work across our city, our small rural city lines and unincorporated areas as well. So we thank you for your service and thank you for coming, allowing Flagstaff to come and testify today. And we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Newberg and Commissioners. I am Kathy Kinsella. I am a council member for the city of Sedona. And as my colleague, Councilmember Plug said, the city of Sedona did present testimony at the IRC Commission hearing on July 27th. In that testimony, which was ably presented by our Deputy City Manager, Joanne Keene, the city did request that it be kept intact in both the congressional district and the legislative district, and specifically asked first and foremost that the city be kept intact and not split by county lines. The city also requested an outcome that maintains the Verde Valley communities of Sedona, the village of Oak Creek, Cottonwood, Camp Verde, Jerome, and Clarkdale, as well as the Yavapai Apache Nation, together within congressional and legislative districts. The IRC has now released draft district grid maps. And I understand, again, thank you that you're working on those. But as the basis, we did come forth with this statement. The preliminary congressional district grid map represents the city of Sedona intact in what would become Congressional District 2. It also maintains the relationships that Sedona has with its neighboring communities, with which it shares business and economic interests, residential housing opportunities, healthcare providers and facilities, transportation corridors and infrastructure, cultural and educational institutions, and many other long-term alliances, as well as our shared history, natural resources, and physical features. The preliminary legislative district grid map represents the city of Sedona, though, as split between two legislative districts, which removes a portion of our city and its residents from the relationships and bonds that I just listed. The city of Sedona requests reconsideration to proposed legislative district boundaries. We ask that the city of Sedona be kept intact to ensure our residents can continue to speak with one voice as one community. We further ask that our city be kept with neighboring communities listed above, so that our region may have unified representation in matters before the state. We request respect for our communities of interest and geographic area. We seek an outcome that recognizes the importance of aligning our city with our neighboring communities that have similar common interests. Representation and community voice are ideals at the heart of independent redistricting. A voice that is inclusive of our inextricably bound communities is essential to the representation that Sedona deserves. We would be happy to provide any documentation that might be helpful to your review. We very much appreciate the Independent Redistricting Commission's consideration of our request. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Michelle James, Executive Director of Friends of Flagstaff's Future, also known as F-Cubed. As a Flagstaff-focused nonprofit, we have been advocating for the well-being and sustainability of the community for 26 years. We appreciate the opportunity to comment directly to the IRC about the adopted grid maps. One of the criteria the Commission will be using as a guide for new district maps includes the incorporation of visible geographic features, including city boundaries. F-Cubed would like to see redistricting maps result in boundaries that keep the greater Flagstaff area in one and the same district. We encourage the Commission to view the greater Flagstaff area as a community of interest. Of particular concern to the greater Flagstaff community are expected ecological changes due to climate change, including increasing wildfire intensity and size, forest and watershed health, flooding, and the availability of water. These are issues that other nearby communities also share. Additional issues that unite the greater Flagstaff area and nearby communities include the lack of affordable housing for our workforce, the impact of short-term rentals and second homes, high housing costs, and the imperative to reduce our carbon emissions. F-Cubed respectively requests that these issues and needs are seriously considered when designating the district boundaries that include the greater Flagstaff community of interest. It's imperative to the future of Flagstaff that our community, with our specific issues and needs, is represented in Congress and the legislature. Thank you. Our next three speakers are Marilyn Weissman, Ray Bladine, and Julie Pindola.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Weissman. I'm a Flagstaff resident. Thank you for giving us another opportunity to comment on the workings of the commission. Previously, I spoke to the commission regarding Flagstaff's desire for representation in the state legislature that reflects the issues important to our town: tourism, growth and affordability, water resource protection and availability, reducing the threat of forest fires, and climate change, to name the most pressing. We need to be combined in our legislative district with neighbors that are grappling with these same issues and that are connected to us geographically and culturally. I was pleased to see that your test map and the grid map kept together all of the greater Flagstaff area and combined it with the Verde Valley. The lands in northern Arizona south of us and lying east of Mingus Mountain share a lot in common with Flagstaff. These common interests stretch up to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, which unfortunately was not included in your proposed test map version of our legislative district. From the Verde Valley through Flagstaff and to the south rim of the Grand Canyon is a corridor of beautiful rivers, canyons, and mountains that all of us residing here play and commute within. When friends and family visit me, these are the areas I take them to and consider my home. I would like to see this area become politically cohesive so we may lobby for the issues important to us. Regarding the CD test and grid map for our area, I'm concerned that by including Prescott and Flagstaff both together, the strength of the Native American vote will be severely diluted, and this will potentially violate the Voting Rights Act. Prescott and Flagstaff should be in separate congressional districts. Thank you.
I appreciate having shorter people ahead of me. I don't have to put the mic up or down. Madam Chairwoman, commission members, Vice Chairman, Watchman, I came with a list of things I wanted to talk about, but as I sat at this meeting, I realized a lot of them have been taken care of, so I'm not going to talk about them. The first thing I'd like to say is I cannot believe how different this meeting is here than when I was here 10, 11 years ago as the executive director, and I managed to mess up and I didn't get a commissioner here, so I basically had to make the presentations until we could get a commissioner, and then he was in his kitchen, so I was lucky I didn't get fired. I'm very impressed with the changes you've made since you got started. I believe you're now handling competitiveness as it should be. That's always been an issue. The tendency has been for people in Republican districts to say, well, that's a lesser thing. People in Democratic districts saying, no, it isn't. I'm going to give you my personal view because I think it affects government in Arizona. And that is, if the decisions for who's going to be the leaders of our community are made in the primary elections in safe districts, it helps divide us because the people are not electing their leaders. They are being given their leaders based upon partisan politics. And I do believe that what we've seen in Arizona, as much as the last commission pushed competitiveness, is that we have still too many legislative districts where the decision is made in the primary election. And I would urge you to please think about that as you follow the Constitution. Second thing is, I'm sure you already have had a lot of pressure from the political parties and people that have an axe to grind in terms of the districts. All I can say to you is, I know that's tough. Remember your constitutional responsibilities and follow them. And you certainly seem to me that you've been trying hard to do that. The third thing is reaching out to minority and low-income areas. While it is nice to have satellite meetings and while it's nice to have things available over the internet, there are a lot of people that don't have the internet or have to work to get to the internet. So I'm very pleased to see you reaching out to various communities and holding meetings in areas where you make it easier for minority and low-income people to show up. You can't expect, from my experience in government and many years working in the inner city, you can't expect people who are working to keep food in their mouth and keep housing to make a lot of extra effort to get to meetings. So I think it's your responsibility to go to them. I think you've made some recent changes and some work with minority community leaders, and you're doing that. And for that, I thank you. And I just want to say, I know it's a terrible job. I'm very glad you took it. We need it done. And I think you're off to a good start. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Independent Redistricting Commission commissioners, for making yourselves available again to receive firsthand testimony on this most important project. I'm here today to make my request in Flagstaff, Coconino, though I live in Prescott, Yavapai County. I'm Julie Penzola. I have submitted my draft maps for your consideration. LD 0015, if you can put that up, is my sincere effort at bringing some competitiveness, retaining competitiveness in Northern Arizona. Thank you again, too, for the added mapping flexibility and enhancements. They're very, very much appreciated. Yavapai County has two subregions of note. On the west is Central Yavapai County, containing the Quad Cities you've heard tell about many times. That Central Yavapai County stops at Mingus Mountain. From there eastward is the second subregion, which is the Verde Valley, and the communities of Cottonwood, Jerome, Clarkdale, Sedona, Camp Verde, Cornville, and Oak Creek, about 65,000 people when you take in unincorporated areas. Central Yavapai is unique with its official, my home turf, with its official Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, whose boundary stops west of Mingus Mountain. They recognize Mingus Mountain as a divide. The Verde Valley has its own regional planning organization so that they can control their own decisions. They have better representation that way. The Verde Valley has its own regional courts, a jail, college campus, hospital system. They are their own large-scale community of interest. Water resource management also stops at Mingus Mountain. The Prescott Active Management Area, designated by the Arizona Department of Water Resources, overlays Central Yavapai County. It does not include the Verde Valley. They each have different aquifers and different water management structures. Please acknowledge this and keep them in their currently separate LDs and CDs. The Verde Valley contributes to a competitive adjacent CD1. If you lump them together with the rest of Yavapai County, you create two red districts instead of a red and purple, which we have now. We independents want quality choices on our ballots. We want there to be a real competition and not just safe districts that are predetermined at the primaries. We know some districts like LD1 and CD4 of Central Yavapai County cannot easily be made competitive. That is why we implore you to keep the whole of Arizona fair and competitive as Prop 106 sets out. It's my belief that invisible county boundaries used as district boundaries can constrain the goal of competitiveness and true communities of interest. And I know many know that to be true, Giving the whole of Yavapai County to Congresspeople and 4 state legislators would be more, not less, responsive to the citizens. Thank you very much. Our next two speakers are Laura Hewnicky and Thomas Broderick.
Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Vice Chair Watchman, for being here with us in person. My name's Laura Hewnicky. I submitted map LDF 005 for a legislative district here in Northern Arizona that links communities and regions with similar natural and physical environments, similar economic dependence on tourism and outdoor recreation, and a shared predominance of national parks and national forests. This proposed district links Flagstaff, Sedona, Cottonwood, most of the Verde Valley, as you've heard several times tonight, which share many interests and stresses. It links these communities to similar forest, recreation, vacation-based communities to the east, like Pine, Strawberry, Pine Top. By stretching to the state's northwestern corner, it incorporates both the south and the north rims of Grand Canyon and the national recreation areas along Lake Mead and Lake Mojave. This westward extension also brings in the Kaibab Paiute, the Havasupai, and the entirety of Hualapai tribal lands, and links those groups to Flagstaff and its strong indigenous connections. But importantly, the plan carves out the Navajo Nation portion of eastern Coconino County so that the Navajo Nation could be kept whole in another legislative district. This district excludes Prescott itself, as the prior speaker just described. The Prescott Groundwater Active Management Area provides a discrete boundary based on watersheds and also sets Prescott apart economically and politically from this proposed district. And this district does not incorporate any portion of Maricopa County. Finally, it appears to be relatively competitive politically according to your adopted metrics. In sum, this proposal illustrates the feasibility of a relatively compact rural legislative district in northern Arizona that's responsive to the wish of Flagstaff, Sedona, and Verde Valley folks to be connected, that links communities with shared interests in natural environment and outdoors recreation economy, that uses natural and governmental geographic features for boundaries, and that acknowledges the importance of keeping Navajo Nation whole, while also being relatively competitive to maximize our chances for fair representation and attention. Thank you for listening to our input.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you. My name is Tom Broderick. I'm a 25-year resident of Flagstaff and taller than the other speakers. The map, a map that shows that what the points that I'm going to make are listed as Ryan 1084. That map has been submitted, but it may not. You may not have it yet, or you may not have uploaded it. We appreciate that Flagstaff and Verde Valley were combined together. And one of the maps that you have, the LD Test 1, showed that you got some of the Fort Valley corridor, which has been brought up in the last meeting that I was also at. But the map for this legislative district, I support going right up to the south rim of the canyon, because that allows you to tie the tourist economy of the Grand Canyon with Flagstaff, which is the gateway. And the other point that I wanted to make on the congressional district, that's legislative district, the congressional district, you have a map that shows it going down to the Mexico border. And that incorporates a community that is obviously a border community, but that though there are two districts that have a lot of border mileage, and there's no need to have the CD, what you call 2, going to the Mexico border, because the border community should be held together. So the illustration, though, of the map for Ryan 1084 shows that it also incorporates in that district quite a few Native American communities. And I'd also support having, as the indigenous communities have already said, that they would like to be held together to the maximum extent possible. And that certainly is something that I would support as well. Thank you.
We'll go back to Surprise for a bit now.
Marilyn Wilbur, Ann Fenner, Patty Cipro, and David Gilberth.
Good evening, chairs and commissioner. My name is Brendan Walsh. I'm the executive director of an organization called CASE, which is Central Arizonans for Sustainable Economy. We've been around for about 10 years now, and we do a lot to engage people in the civic process, voter registration, citizenship, all kinds of, testifying in city council, things like this that people are nervous to do. So I'm glad to be here. Our interest is largely, along with others, first of all, in preserving the Voting Rights Act protected districts of minority districts. I believe we have 2 congressional and 8 legislative. We're very much in support of keeping these together. Most of the people we work with live in places like Legislative District 19, 29, 27. And we feel like the communities of interest are very held together very well there. And so we hope that that will be something that stays taken into account. I think in general, I'm not going to respond too much to the grid maps because they are so tentative, I think, as you said, but I want to talk about something different. We also work a lot in other areas. I live in LD 20, Legislative District 20, which I think is a particularly interesting place. It's a place where it is a competitive district, and I think competitiveness is important. But I live at 35th Avenue in Thunderbird. My kids' school is the most diverse school that I've seen. It has African-American students, African refugee students, Latino students, and Anglo students. If we were to lose our association with people south of us, like let's say with Peoria, Cactus, Dunlap to Northern, we would be almost an exclusively white district, right? And it would be frankly a lot less competitive in that respect. And so I think if you think about the communities around Metro Center, you could think also the Black Canyon Highway up to Sunny Slope. There are Latino communities that wouldn't easily be grabbed into places like Legislative District 20, 30 or 29, which are largely Latino, but they're heavily Latino areas or working class areas. And I think they're better served being in competitive districts where there is a diversity of constituents and where, folks have a chance to really, there's a lot of compromise, a lot of give and take that needs to happen in order to be properly legislated. I can't remember, one of the other speakers spoke about competitiveness in exactly this way, about not having things decided before the primary or in the primary. And I think outside of the areas where we want to have majority minority districts, as indicated by the Voting Rights Act, we really do hope to have competitiveness and diverse districts while keeping, in my case, very working class communities together. So we thank you for this process, and we'll be participating in further hearings. I did have one question, is that we would like to submit grid maps once there is some consensus among, and not grid maps, draft maps, once there is consensus among folks about what the majority minority districts are. Is the deadline to submit maps tomorrow, or is there a further deadline? Because we've heard one thing from staff and other things from other people. Thank you very much for your time.
There are no deadlines to submit maps. You may want to pay attention to the commission deliberation schedule,
right?
Because we will be adjusting lines. We may end up concluding with a draft map as early as October 21st.
That's right.
As late as, well, I don't want to say as late as, but aspirationally, we certainly hope we have lines at the end of October. Even after then, those draft maps are taken around the state for further deliberation, and communities and citizens are welcome to submit maps even after then.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
So it's going to be an ongoing process.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time.
Good evening, committee. My name is Marilyn Weissman, and I'm a combat Air Force veteran, and I'm also a resident of Surprise. But I'm speaking today as a member and a leader of the Hospitality Workers Union, Unite Here Local 11. Unite Here represents 4,000 hotel workers in food and the service industry, primarily in the city of Phoenix. The majority of us are women and people of color. The largest number of us live in West Phoenix, South Phoenix, and the area around Sky Harbor Airport. At the moment, our situation in the legislative districts of District 19, 27, and 29, as well as 30, keep us together with neighbors who share our economic and educational as well as social interests. We hope that this stays the same, but I would like to speak briefly about an element on the grid that does concern me, particularly the potential separation of the African and the African American community. I believe the grid map separates the large Black communities in the South Phoenix west of Central from those who live close to the airport. Being such a small portion of Arizona's population, we need a density of African and African American residents to have a chance to choose our own representation. I hope you will take that into account. We at Unite Here, Local 11, are grateful for your work and look forward to the continued participation in this process. Thank you.
I just want to, acknowledge that comment and say thank you, because the African American community, unlike maybe some of the other ethnic communities, are not, obviously in one specific geographic location. And so we want to learn. And so the more information and data you can share, I just want to say that's very helpful. So thank you.
Next speakers are Walter Montgomery, Richard Hale, Blair Terman, Crystal Chafin, and Steve Peru.
Good evening, Chairwoman Newberg, Vice Chair Watchman, and members of the Commission. My name is Blair Tarman, and I am a Native Vote Fellow at the Indian Legal Clinic at ASU Law. Communities of interest organized around religion, schools, and common industry have been discussed at length, but I'm here to discuss Arizona's communities of interest that predate Arizona, the state's 22 federally recognized tribes. American Indian tribes, according to law, are sovereign nations with unique rights and political status, while also being racial and ethnic minorities. Within the boundaries of 20 reservations in the state of Arizona, tribes provide most of the governmental functions and sustain day-to-day life. These geographic boundaries are paramount and are entitled to respect when drawing district boundaries. In light of these considerations, a reservation should not be separated into multiple districts unless a tribe specifically requests division. Courts have recognized reservations as communities of interest, and the District of Arizona has stated that Native voters should not be engulfed in a structure that minimizes their potential for meaningful access to the political process. The Voting Rights Act instructs this commission to use its lawful discretion to protect the interests of the only Native American majority-minority legislative district in Arizona. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Arizona's legislative maps because the maps were drawn in a good faith effort to comply with the Voting Rights Act. The court affirmed that total population deviations of 10% or less are presumptively constitutional. We know that Arizona tribal communities were undercounted in the 2020 census. Arizona has the highest number of Native Americans living in hard-to-count census tracts, with 68.1% of the state's Native population living in such areas. In addition to living in hard-to-count areas, poverty increases the likelihood of being undercounted. In Arizona, 35% of Native Americans live in poverty compared to the state average of 14.9%. Lack of access to basic infrastructure also contributes to the undercount. Undercounting is detrimental to tribal communities and ultimately results in Native voters being denied adequate representation and the ability to elect candidates of their choice. A balance must be struck to satisfy one person, one vote while protecting Native American voters in the redistricting process. During the last redistricting cycle, the Commission approved a legislative district to strengthen the ability of Native Americans to elect their candidates of choice under the Voting Rights Act. Today, the Voting Rights Act instructs the Commission to continue to protect the strength of the Native vote. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Crystal Chaffin. I am a member of the governing board for Dysart Unified School District, and I'm also a precinct committeeman for Legislative District 21. And I would just like to oppose what you are proposing to do to LD 21. For us precinct committeemen, it would be really difficult for us to get up to Kingman or for Kingman to get down to us for our meetings. And as what you're doing with Congressional District 82, separating Sun City into two parts and then separating Sun City from Sun City West. What you are doing in your nonpartisan is you are taking the highly conservative areas and divvying them up into largely more liberal or left areas. This is what you're doing, and I'm calling you out. Okay? This is not okay. And I'd also like to know why you cut off Mr. Van Steenwyk when you seem to let every other person ramble on for 5 to 10 minutes. I would like to know, could you please tell me why you only cut him off and not some of the other speakers?
I'd like you to please just continue your comments. I'd like to learn from what you would like to share with us. Thank you.
I would like to share with you not to break up Sun City West, LD 21. I would like for you not to include our district in with the Kingman, and I would like for you to keep our districts as they are and not split up our conservative areas so that they will turn blue. And I would still like an answer for the question on Mr. Van Steenwyk. Can you please tell me why you only cut him off and you didn't cut anyone else off?
I have no response to that. I would like to remind you that all maps as of this point are quite arbitrary. And so I encourage the public to please not draw too many conclusions based on lines. It's a work in progress. And with that, I'd like to ask for the next speaker.
Thank you very much. Those are my conclusions. And I would like the record to show that I did not get my question answered.
Our next speakers are Trey Terry, Timothy Schwartz, Kathy White, Rick Gray, and Ralph Johnson.
Hello, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Trey Terry. I'm actually serve on the governing board of the Agua Fria Union High School District. It's in the Southwest Valley. I live in Goodyear. It includes the communities of Litchfield Park, Goodyear, Avondale, Buckeye, Waddell. And last time the commission did some work on our area, my district contains 5 high schools, about almost 10,000 students. So it's quite a large populous area. We got split into 4 different legislative districts just in our little neighborhoods. And keep in mind, my high school district is over 60 years old. It represents one of the older communities out here in the Southwest Valley. Well, I say out here, I would argue that we are different than the Northwest Valley of Surprise and Sun City. So I would just like to advocate for keeping the Southwest Valley together. Those communities of Buckeye, Goodyear, Litchfield Park, Waddell. And that kind of relates into my second and final point, which is actually going to be about Yuma. Yuma County likes to argue that they, want to be split, even though they are almost the population needed for a legislative district. They argue kind of in one voice that they like the extra representation. Well, however, my community's kind of been victim to that practice because when you leave Yuma, you have to travel over 100 miles of barren desert and go somewhere. And that, over the last 10 years, has been the Southwest Valley, to where I live in a city of Goodyear, which actually is the same population as the city of Yuma. However, the city of Goodyear is one of the fastest growing cities in the entire country. Buckeye, right next door, is the fastest. in the entire country and the entire state. And the city of Goodyear at any point in time has never had more than one resident serving in the legislature. Yuma County has had at times as many as 4. So I would argue that the county of Yuma, they are not making an argument based on the constitutional criteria for redistricting. They're not talking, they're arguing as a community of interest. It doesn't make geographic sense to go hundreds of miles across barren desert elsewhere. And, when you do that, you disenfranchise other communities. So I would like to ask for the Southwest Valley to kind of remain together as we were, more than 10 years ago. Also, Yuma County, I believe, would also be a majority minority district, so it would fit the qualifications for a VRA district. So that's just my input. In the Southwest Valley, we got chopped up pretty badly in the past. And as a school board member, having 4 different legislative districts where we only make up a very tiny sliver of any of those districts. So I would argue that's a case where being split up isn't helpful. It doesn't mean that I have 12 different legislators looking out for us. My state representative, I live 20 minutes from downtown Phoenix. My state representative lives closer to SeaWorld in San Diego than he does to me. I see him maybe 2 or 3 times during election season, despite being of the same party, and I'm an elected official within his district. So I would just like you to keep that in mind when it comes to the Southwest Valley. We're not just, brand new growing communities. We are also old, long-standing communities that just have massive growth up and around us. So, keep in mind that we are a suburban, we are Maricopa County. We are not a rural district or we are not a rural community. And with that, I would like to say thank you. I know you guys are quite busy and hearing a lot, but I appreciate the time.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Timothy Schwartz, Chairman of Legislative District 30. I was the chair prior to the last redistricting and was concerned about the outcome 10 years ago because the final maps were not fair and favored one political party over the other. I took consolation, however, from friends who assured me that if I waited 10 years, that there would be great effort to see this wrong corrected. I did wait 10 years. I know the maps proposed are not final, but as I look at the proposed map of LD 24, instead of correction, I see a greater injustice, which is power given to one political side. That's because currently our greatest strength is north of Bethany Home Road. That's where the line is drawn, is at Bethany Home Road. I happen to live south of Bethany Home Road. And of our 93 members, which I work very hard to recruit over the years and train, organize, mobilize, 78 of those people live north of Bethany Home Road. And I happen to live south of Bethany Home Road. As the LD chair, the current map would mean that I'm now chair of only 15 of our 93 members. I've spent years, as I said, I spent years organizing those members. So I take a little disheartened that things are broken up. So currently, and I know it's not final, but this current map of LD 24, the center of it's Maryville. I've lived in the current location for 58 years, and I've seen Maryville change drastically. It's now predominantly an illegal alien community, even though it's always been a Hispanic community. It would be very hard for us to compete politically as the current map. So I know it's not a final say, but Excuse me, I'm having trouble reading. I had eye surgery. A little bit of a disability here. In the last 10 years, our group has tried to run for office and win a Senate seat or a House race. But because of the current lines being so heavily weighted towards one party, we simply cannot win no matter how much effort we give. Unless your commission redraws the proposed lines, giving us a fighting chance, our efforts would be in vain. I'd like to cite three portions of Article 4, Part 2, Section 1 of the Arizona State Constitution. Part D, district boundaries shall respect communities of interest to the extent practicable and nothing about the proposed LD 23 map is practical unless you belong to one of the two parties. Part F, to the extent practicable, competitive districts shall be favored where to do so would create no significant detriment to the other goals. Again, forgive my vision. I believe that my comments reflect that these lines are not practical or competitive, and there will be significant detriment with the current LD24 map. Part C, districts shall be districts shall be geographically compact and contiguous to the extent practicable. Let me state that it's been very difficult to work in LD30 and govern the current LD30 area with our area being west of I-17 freeway with only a very small strip on the other side of the freeway, east of I-17. To be geographically compact, we need to fix this. I'm not opposed to losing that small strip east of LD17, but we really must have our maps move to northern areas so that we can, north of Bethany Home Road and towards Glendale and northern for part of our map. Again, I'm sorry for my not being able to read. Anyway, I beg you, thank you for your work. Thank you for your consideration. God bless your efforts.
Our next speakers are Patty Fitzgerald, Bob Fitzgerald, Kenneth Moyes, Mary Ziola, and Linda Bushman. Oh, then go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. My apologies.
As with the previous gentleman, I have two eye disabilities, so I need to get my flashlight on my phone and urge your folks to have good lighting up here for us. My name is Ralph Johnson. I am the president of the Property Owners and Residents Association of Sun City West. We're commonly known by the acronym PORA, Sun City West PORA. We are the quasi-governmental arm of our community as an unincorporated area. We interact with the legislative representatives and also very much involved in the corporate commission with regard to the utilities and working very closely with RUCO, et cetera, et cetera. I want to imply that earlier, a couple hours ago, you said that if we could refer back to some of the previous speakers in the interest of time, please do so. I want to reference Mayor Hall from Surprise, Sun City General Manager Bill Cook, a woman by the name of Lynn Peters from Surprise, who made very poignant remarks, and three of my Sun City West residents have also made very appropriate remarks, which will help me eliminate some of my talk. But now I want to quote, "It is clear that the current proposal, if adopted, would significantly erode the important and longstanding West Valley block of voters by splitting Sun City and Sun City West, as well as including them in unrelated areas and people with totally different concerns and issues. In short, the people of Sun City West and Sun City, along with Surprise and other communities that have been noted, would no longer have much of a voice in legislative issues if they would be controlled by communities, also the congressional district of communities of Kingman, Yuma, and other areas such as Phoenix. Also, who in our communities would be interested in running for a legislative position, considering the size and locale of the areas where they would be required to campaign and serve their citizens. The Sun City and Sun City West show boards urge the commission to maintain the integrity of having 2 legislative districts for each of our communities. Our current legislators work very well together, but it gives us further opportunity for stronger representation for each of our communities. And in closing, when I look at the congressional district map that carves out a small portion of Maricopa County, it is very visibly disproportionate to the scope of CD9 that goes all the way up the western border of the state and all the way to the Utah line. Just seems very disproportionate and not compatible with the needs of our community. I thank you for your difficult and hard work, and best wishes to every one of you at the head table. Thank you.
I'm going to repeat those names again. Patty Fitzgerald, Bob Fitzgerald, Kenneth Moyes, Mary Ziola, Linda Busham.
Thank you, everybody, for letting me speak today. First, I want to tell you, my name is Linda Busham, and I'm a retired resident of Peoria. And I wholeheartedly agree with earlier speakers, Bonnie Angster and Claire Vince-Like. They've said everything that I wanted to say. I just want to say that all of my family, my friends, my church, my medical facilities, my shopping are all located within a 10-mile radius of my home, and mostly to the west, north, and east of my home. I rarely travel south for anything except for on a rare occasion. So Peoria, Sun City, Surprise, El Mirage, Youngtown, and Glendale are my communities of interest, as well as Litchfield and Goodyear and Avondale and Buckeye and Sun City West. The mayors of these towns, they all work together and they depend on one another. When you've got them split into other counties, they can't possibly get fair representation. It robs them. So they need to be grouped with neighboring retirement communities and nearby suburbs. So I'm asking to please redraw your maps and reflect the common interests of our communities so that they are given fair representation and so they can continue working together. Thank you.
Our next speakers are Steve Peru, Quintus Schultz, Noel Rosden, Tega Maidu, Johnny Melton,
Good evening. My name is Steve Peru, Coconino County Manager in Northern Arizona. I submitted maps LD 0013 and CD 0016. Previously this evening, our board chair, Matt Ryan, and our vice chair, Lena Fowler, addressed the commission. A couple of things I wanted to also indicate. Coconino County is the second largest county in the United States, 18,600 some square miles, larger than some states in the Northeast, larger than the country of Switzerland. It's also home to a variety of sovereign tribal nations, which of course add to the vibrancy and the diversity of our county. Our County Board of Supervisors, as it's always been, is very committed in working with our tribal nations in the redistricting effort to ensure that adequate representation, equal representation, is ensured while maintaining and respecting tribal sovereignty. Having said that, earlier this evening, our honorable gentleman from the Yavapai Nation spoke in favor of being included in the districts that Coconino County submitted on both the legislative and the congressional maps. I do want to say that on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we will be submitting amended maps to honor that request from our tribal nation partner, as well as the Yavapai tribe. We found that that's also an omission on our part. I submitted the maps, but I do want to state that for the record, we will be making those changes to our maps, and then of course apologize to our tribal partners for that omission on my part. So with that, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, I thank you for your service to the state of Arizona, and really look forward to future conversations with you. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Quintus Schultzke. I'm a resident of Surprise. I'll keep my comments pretty brief. It's a marathon here, and we'll try to make it to the end. I just want to represent, I've been living in Surprise for 13 years, and we have a proposed division, at least from computer modeling, that seems to be happening in the middle of our town. We just need to sit back, and I want the commission respectfully to just look at the role that you have now. Computers can generate models, but it's communities that build up Arizona. And that's what we're here to do, is to keep those communities strong. You've heard from many people. I lived in Tucson for 8 years, glad to hear them speaking up, and from all over the state. And I just hope that that will be kept in mind. There's a very important variable, which is those communities. And every other factor that you can throw into your computer data modeling and your cute little clockwise from the middle of McDowell and 19th and Grand, all those can come together, but in a reasonable fashion with the help of your work. So this is the challenge now. Hopefully you're not going to be rushing that to try to get it in before the end of October, but whatever it takes now to bear in mind everything that the communities have said. You've said you've been hearing. Yes, you've been hearing. This is a hearing. Now it's time to listen. We hope you will listen to our feedback and take that into account. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Tagar. I actually saw you at the Irc Map meeting in Phoenix, and I said I was going to turn in a map. It is LD0018. If you could bring that up, that would be appreciated. I'd like to talk about some numbers. For my map, the overall population deviation is 3.25%, and each district has a plus or minus deviation under 1%, with the exception of the old LD7, which is about 2.4%. In terms of proportionality, it has a Davis Redistricting App score of 93%. So in other words, the voters translates into the LDs proportionally. In other words, it is really fair. I live in Tempe, so I'll start by saying for LD18, we would like to keep the Kayenta School District intact, with Baseline Road being the northern boundary. And for LD26, I would like the southern edge of Scottsdale to be added to that district. But overall, I'd like to spend a lot of time talking about minority districts. It's important that though you have districts that are Hispanic opportunity districts or Native American districts, that you don't overpack these districts and have competitive districts that are racially diverse. Particularly the Southwest Valley, I have I created a district that has the cities of Avondale, Goodyear, and Hilla Bend whole, and has the Maricopa County part of the Gila River Reservation and a good chunk of the city of Buckeye. That district creates a district that is both majority minority and competitive. I'll continue to emphasize that. I would appreciate it if a district similar to that is created, because it also creates a district that the Southwest Valley deserves. And for other changes to the other minority districts, LD 29, I'd like to see the city of El Mirage and Litchfield Park added to it, and that unified to a compact strip of southern Glendale. Another major change to my map is that Glendale is divided into 3 parts as opposed to 5. For LD 30, I'd like that to just be in West Phoenix. For LD 27, I'd like Van Buren Street to be the northern border. And finally, for LD 19, I'd like that to be just Tolleson and West Phoenix. And then now moving over to LD 4, in what I drew, I have all of the city of Yuma in it. I have the Yuma County split between north and south, but I have that going across the border all the way to the city of Nogales and Rio Rico. And then the rest of Santa Cruz County is taken up to southwest Tucson to create the old LD2. And for LD3, I like that to be northwest Tucson and Flowing Wells to be majority minority. And then finally, for LD7, I was able to draw a Native American district that doesn't include all the city of Flagstaff at all and loops all the way into Pinal County. So the point of that is that if you're going to have parts of Flagstaff in LD7, it should only be a small part, because I was able to draw a district that doesn't have Flagstaff at all. Finally, I talk about the city of Tucson and how it should be divided. I have a version of LD10, that's the east side of Tucson, and though it is favors one party, the partisanship is not as extreme, and I really like the version of LD9 that I drew because it's completely suburban. It has the cities of Marana, Oro Valley, Tucson Mountains, Catalina Foothills, and it is competitive. Because people from Tucson complain, we don't want to be part of Tucson. So fine, you can draw a completely suburban district of Tucson, but it is possible to make it competitive. And that's my point there. And then I'd also add that for the city of Mesa, it would be great if we have 2 LDs that are entirely within Mesa. And I also believe that it should have an LD that's Queen Creek, Santan Valley, Apache Junction, and Gold Canyon. And then for the North Valley, I had Cave Creek and Carefree. Okay, I'll round up really quickly. I'd have the city of Cave Creek and Carefree in the Scottsdale district, and the other 2 North Valley cities in the North Phoenix district. And I have 24 extended north to include the city of Paradise Valley. And finally, LD 28 is a very compact horizontal strip district that is extremely competitive. It's the most competitive in the whole state, but more importantly, it is compact. And thank you. That'll be all.
Thank you. We're going to hand it off to Flagstaff.
Okay, first up, we have Bill Regner, then Ernie and Karen Straw, and then Kathy Rutherford.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Commission members, and the IRC staff. My name is Bill Regner from Clarkdale, and while I'm an elected council member of the town of Clarkdale, my comments tonight are my own. In rural Arizona, we understand that the best solutions are often regional solutions. We urge your recognition of and actions towards preserving our community of interest consisting of the Verde Valley municipalities of Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Jerome, and Sedona, along with the Yavapai Apache Nation and the unincorporated areas of eastern Yavapai County. I also encourage you to retain the integrity of other communities of interest, whether they be groups of small rural municipalities or a larger municipality such as Flagstaff in our greater Northern Arizona region. LD 0013, I believe, is a good example of how to do this. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam Chairman Newberg and Commissioners. I'm Ernie Strow, a 23-year resident of Sedona, a former city councilman and vice mayor. I currently live in the Coconino County area of Sedona and feel somewhat separate from my other friends that form the majority of the community. So I am appreciative so far of what appears to be a desire to keep all of the Verde Valley together and also to join the Verde Valley, frankly, with the Flagstaff area. I was a former Sedona representative here in Flagstaff to the Sustainable Economic Development Initiative in Flagstaff here as a total Sedona representative, not just the Coconino County portion of it. So please continue to do that. I'm going to point out two particular, very specific reasons in addition to those you've heard before. Northern Arizona Healthcare, the main hospitals are here in Flagstaff, but each one of our communities, Cottonwood, Sedona, and Camp Verde, have subsidiary facilities that we utilize. But when anything of real serious nature occurs, we come to Flagstaff. And we deal with Flagstaff routinely in this area. Many of the specialists are here in town. We don't go to Prescott for that. The second is we share a lot of interest in tourism with Flagstaff as a gateway to the Grand Canyon, Sedona, the Oak Creek, and we are all part of the Coconino National Forest. The Coconino National Forest is managed, frankly, out of the district office in Flagstaff. So we don't share national forest in the management of our recreational areas with Prescott or anyone else, and all of the Verde Valley is consistent with the Coconino National Forest. So again, for those reasons, I thank you for so far keeping the Verde Valley together, and I hope that in the future we will retain that feature as well as its connection to Flagstaff. Thank you much.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Karen Strow. I am a 23-year resident, as is my husband, of Sedona. And we love Sedona and the Verde Valley, and we ask that it all be kept together with Flagstaff. Our tourism interests are the same, but our values of environmentalism and keeping our beautiful areas dedicated to the environmentalist movement are most important to us. So Thank you very much. Good evening. It's getting into the evening, isn't it? I'll try to make this brief. My name is Kathy Rutherford, and I want to thank the commissioners for giving us another opportunity to be heard. I speak for myself and other concerned citizens from Sedona and the Verde Valley. I have lived in Sedona for 12 years. First of all, we want to thank you so much for listening to our input regarding Sedona and the Verde Valley and Flagstaff as a community of interest. We know that the current draft reflects our input. I was the originator, you might remember my name, of a petition from citizens for fair redistricting, requesting a change.
King, you know the rules. King, go down.
There's some kind of something else.
Do either of you need a beverage?
I'll have one if you're having one.
So I don't know, there's somebody else talking. A policy, we requested change in the policy regarding the IRC mapping tool. And we greatly appreciate that you listened to our requests and gave us more opportunities for input by allowing single district maps, paper maps, which are particularly important for the indigenous tribes in our state, and by allowing uploading from other mapping software to the IRC mapping tool. Thank you so much for that. That's been so helpful. I'm going to quickly reinforce that Sedona, the Verde Valley, and Flagstaff are closely connected and a community of interest. We residents live within that community of interest on a daily basis. We live in a tourist-based economy, whether we're in Sedona or Cottonwood or Flagstaff or the areas that surround them. Tourists impact our lives on a daily basis, and we need representatives at our state level legislature and federal that understand our needs and can listen to our concerns. It's also true that we shop everywhere. We go to Cottonwood, we can't find what's there in Cottonwood, we go to Flagstaff. We do not, however, drive 3 hours round trip to Prescott unless we have to. Mingus Mountain is a giant barrier, and it is not the county boundaries that determine what we do and where we live. It is that geographic barrier. It's major. I also want to emphasize that public safety is something that we all have in common. My husband works for the Verde Valley Search and Rescue, and just a week and a half ago, something happened up Oak Creek in Coconino County Search and Rescue's area. There was a man, unfortunately, he died of some kind of trauma, like a heart attack or something. And Coconino was out there all night looking for him and could not find him. So they were exhausted. So they called Verde Valley Search and Rescue, which is basically, in our area. And our people went up and searched for him and found him. So we work together on a daily basis. As Ernie pointed out, our healthcare systems are so integrated throughout the valley and into Flagstaff. I come up here for my knees. I come up here for my women's needs. I come up here because that's where the doctors are. Sometimes they visit Sedona, but you need, really good care. You come to Flagstaff. It's really important. Rural health care is so different, and we need good doctors. We also have a lot in common that we do recreationally, and we bring visitors back and forth. People from Flagstaff come to Sedona. People from Sedona go to Cottonwood. We work together. So I just want to emphasize that because we have all of these activities and necessities in common, we need representatives that will listen to those common interests. We are a community of interest, and thank you so much for putting that into your draft maps. And we really emphasize that we want it to stay that way. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Kate Saunders, Leonard Gorman, and Arlene Rothfelder.
Good evening, commissioners. them. And Chairwoman, my name is Kate Saunders. I've spoken at several of these, so we should be familiar with each other by now. For those who don't know, my name is Kate Saunders. I'm a recent graduate of Arizona State University with a Master of Science. I'm actually a resident of Phoenix, Arizona, a queer constituent of Phoenix in LD 24 and CD 7. But I'm up in Flagstaff today. There are several people of the LGBTQ community and some leaders here in Flagstaff that wanted to speak today, but were unable to make it. So I just want to say, before I say the comments, to look out for their public comments and maps that they're going to be submitting. 1 second. A few things to point out. We don't have a map yet produced for Flagstaff as far as LGBTQ presence in the community, but we will be submitting that soon from input from residents here. And that will be composed of Chamber of Commerce data of LGBTQ plus owned and allied businesses, LGBTQ plus churches and religious organizations, university clubs and programs, historical sites and community groups, art collectives, and health clinics across Flagstaff. There are a few things to point out that I just want to name in Flagstaff, like Flagstaff Pride, which is historically held in Wheeler Park. It's now held at Thorpe Park because it has grown to be such a large and celebrated event. Savano Coffee House and Nightclub, the LGBTQIA Commission and Student Services Programming at NAU, which is a big hub here in Flagstaff, and Living Christ Lutheran Church, and many more LGBTQ plus sites. Flagstaff is a place where queer and trans people access public services, work in and frequent the places of business, attend college, raise children, run clinics, start businesses, and care for one another, like we have mentioned in other parts of the state. On behalf of, I'm speaking on behalf of, personally today as a queer person, but also on behalf of Equality Arizona, who is the statewide LGBTQ advocacy group. And we appreciate you paying attention to the maps that we've been submitting along the way. And our concern is, as queer folks, that we're advocating that Flagstaff not be split up and divided, as is currently the case in Tucson, which divides through part of our cultural hub where queer people congregate in order to access services, share information, and build safety with one another. So we're still putting together the maps, and for those who could not attend, please keep an eye out for those, and we'll be paying attention to the way that you draw the maps in Flagstaff. We also echo the concerns that many Flagstaff residents have been mentioning in order to stay with Verde Valley, and we also want to speak up and say that we support what the Native nations and tribal communities have been saying that their needs are, because queer people are across the state of Arizona, and so tribal needs are also queer needs as we support our queer and trans and two-spirit community members as well. So thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission, Vice Chair Watchman. I just want to express appreciation and be thankful to the folks that spoke here, supporting Indigenous communities, illuminating the need to respect the Indigenous people's efforts to ensure that the Voting Rights Act is appropriately applied in this round of redistricting. The first and foremost, I have 4 points. The first one is Navajo Nation. Actually, I'm representing the Navajo Nation Human Rights Commission. We have a working group in the Navajo government that has the responsibility to devise maps and forward them to the various agencies that are conducting redistricting. And my name is Leonard Gorman. 10 years ago, we had an opportunity to have a map, LD7, to have it go down below the -5 deviation. we were offered that opportunity by the commission then through their lawyers, because their lawyers in the commission at that time found that it would be appropriate to justify that the LD7 have an opportunity to go well below the -5 deviation. And I think that's a part of the legal construct at the moment, because the Harris case that went up to the U.S. Supreme Court provides for no limitation on the +5 and the -5. And it seems to us that there is a floating deviation of 10%. And that's where I think for those folks that have came up to speak in favor of indigenous communities and assuring that there is an opportunity for indigenous peoples, particularly in the LD7, to elect a candidate their choice, I embark upon them to also support Navajo Nation's effort to solicit the commission here to study and formulate ways and means to go below the -5 deviation. The reason why is that currently LD7 has 63% Native American voting age population. It's important that we strive to succeed the 63% the next go around. The congressional district has 20% Native American voting age population. It's important to also make the effort to reach that benchmark for congressional district 1, 2, but more importantly, the legislative district 7. So here's some of the aspects of what we're seeking is for you to accept a white paper that we are developing, and I will share the current white paper that we have submitted to the New Mexico Redistricting Committee to the Vice Chair this evening. It talks about the legal constructs and the issues as to the justification to go below the -5 deviation. So for all of those that spoke in favor of ensuring that the LD7, the indigenous peoples in those communities successfully elect the candidate of their choice, we need your support to further the need to go below the -5 deviation to ensure that we acquire successfully a Native American voting age deviation that is closer to 63%. Now, how does that happen? We have maps that are drawn to take the entire city of Flagstaff into LD7. And I know, having standing here, having heard the rest of the evening, many of the people speaking here saying, keep Flagstaff to the south. I heard that the greater Flagstaff area means look to the south, don't look to the northeast. We need to look to the northeast as a part of the greater Flagstaff area. Navajos also use the same economic initiatives in the city of Flagstaff. I've heard so many stories about the medical facility. Navajo has used the Flagstaff medical facility intensely, particularly last year during the height of the pandemic. Many of our relatives passed, unfortunately, in the Flagstaff Medical Center. We contribute enormously economically to the city of Flagstaff. Every 10 vehicles that's sold in the city of Flagstaff, 9 of them go to the Navajo Nation. That's the reality of the community of interest that we have with the city of Flagstaff. LD7 has the Sacred Mountain, San Francisco Peaks. LD7 also has the land tract that the Navajo Nation owns, Big Boquillas, north of Seligman. And as you've also heard, and I'm glad that the Coconino County will reassess its map that it submitted that's well below the standard of the Native American voting age that's necessary. I'm glad that we will be embarking upon that conversation. So for the purpose of this evening, we will be working with the region communities, and we just met with the Coconino County representatives today, and that they're very eager that we will embark upon a map that represents a robust Native American voting age population. And and then the Apaches have also expressed the same thing as the Yavapais and the Havasupais and as the communities of Fredonia. And lastly, I want to ask how we can submit our maps to the group here. We're utilizing the Maptitude application, and I know sometimes it's very difficult to have the different applications interfacing with the mapping system that the commission uses. And that's the trouble that we're having on the New Mexico side. So if we're able to submit shape files, I'm hoping that they would be incorporated into designs of the maps that you're showing. Thank you.
And Arlene Rothfelder is next. She has submitted a map LDF 003.
Good evening. My name is Arlene Reinfelder. I'm a native Arizonan and a 27-year resident of Yavapai County. I came today to express my concern with the proposed LD5, LD7 division of Yavapai County in the last revision of the LD map. And I do realize that those are not final maps. They're in process, but it showed me that there was some confusion on the part of the commissioners as to communities of interest in Yavapai County. The southeast portion of Yavapai County has the Verde River as its eastern boundary. Ranchers who live in that part of the county do not drive to Payson for groceries because there's no bridge to cross the river in that area. They drive west to I-17 and over to Prescott Valley. The ranchers that live at Horseshoe Ranch off Bloody Basin Road and those that live in Dugas send their children to the mayor's school district. Dividing Yavapai County at I-17 in this area completely disregards the communities of interest in this part of the county, which is more closely aligned with Mayor, Dewey, and Prescott Valley because of the impassable river barrier. And I do appreciate that the commissioners carved out Cordis Lakes, but my neighbors to the east of me on the Kelton Ranch and on the Easy Ranch were separated into a different district, even though they're a few miles away and cannot cross the Verde River. Additionally, those who live along Orm Ranch Road in Cherry and other communities along Highway 169 attend school and shop in Mayer, Dewey Humboldt, and Prescott Valley. They are not part of the Verde Valley area. They have no affinity to that. They're not going to drive over to Camp Verde to shop. They're going to head in the other direction. I know the commission heard a lot of testimony of people who stated that Sedona and the Verde Valley belong with Flagstaff. Sedona, the median age is 61. Flagstaff, the median age is 25. Prescott, the median age is 58. So there's a very large dichotomy there between Sedona and Flagstaff, even though they share some other interests. I know they share some medical resources. However, the Flagstaff Medical Center is a level 1 trauma center. They're fabulous. All of us send people here for trauma cases. Prescott and Prescott Valley do not have a level 1 facility. We either fly them to Flagstaff or we fly them down to Phoenix to the Osborne facility. So Flagstaff has been very blessed with that, and I'm so happy for them because it saved my son's life. One of the problems with that they've mentioned is that Mingus is this impassable barrier. So I wanted to give some perspective on that. The Verde Valley is about 3,000 feet elevation. Sedona is about 4,000 feet. Flagstaff is at about 7,200 feet, and crossing Mingus is about 7,500 feet. So whether you go over Mingus or whether you have to go up Oak Creek Canyon, you're still dealing with the same kind of barrier. You're going from a valley up to a mountain. One of the problems that you have coming out of Sedona in the winter months is you have to deal with the snow. So if you go up I-17, you're dealing with ice-packed I-17, or you go up Oak Creek Canyon, which can become impassable due to the snow. And those times they travel south and they come over to the Prescott area or the Prescott Valley area. I know this from personal experience because my father lived in Cottonwood for many, many years. He would go and hike in Sedona daily, but he never would go shopping in Flagstaff. If he wanted to go shopping, he would go over to Prescott or Prescott Valley. Another issue in the summertime, traveling from Sedona up to Flagstaff, if you go up through Oak Creek Canyon, you're going to be dealing with serious traffic because of the tourism traffic, which just crawls through Oak Creek Canyon. Or you can go up I-17, which on the weekends is typically very difficult to deal with. It's often crawling traffic or completely shut down due to car accidents or wildfires. I own a business in Prescott. I don't live in Prescott. I have clients who drive over from Sedona and Cottonwood and Camp Verde. I've also driven to Sedona and Cottonwood to meet with clients. I don't have any clients from Flagstaff, nor do I drive to Flagstaff to meet with clients. However, I did come here just for you guys because I appreciate you. Yavapai College, which is in Prescott, has satellite campuses in both Cottonwood and Sedona. Yavapai College does not have any satellites in Flagstaff. The students that attend the Red Rock Junior and Senior High School in Sedona, the Cottonwood students that attend Mingus Mountain in high school, and the Camp Verde High School students all have the opportunity to take dual enrollment courses at Yavapai College, which would put them more closely aligned with the rest of Yavapai County rather than Flagstaff. For these reasons, I think that the division that was on the last proposed map is not respecting the communities of interest, although I do think the Verde Valley and Sedona do need to stay together. I think they're more appropriately put with the rest of Yavapai County. I want to thank the commissioners. God bless you all and give you the wisdom of Solomon as you divide this up.
Our last three speakers are Matt Cableby, Phyllis Schiller, and Ann Heitland.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and good evening, Vice Chairman Weissman. It's a pleasure to have you here. Appreciate, again, your time and consideration regarding these matters. You've heard me speak before, but I'm going to reiterate some of the points that have been made tonight. Again, I'm a third-generation Arizonan, born and raised in Kingman, and now reside in the Flagstaff area. As I had mentioned earlier, and I think we heard a lot from the folks in Sun City and the Peoria and Surprise area. I grew up in Kingman when Peoria and Glendale represented Mojave County, and it was not in Mojave County's best interest. And so I think it's very important that we do what we can to maintain 2 solely rural congressional districts and 9 solely rural legislative districts. It can be done. The population's there. The demographic and population shifts have not been that significant, so it's still a strong possibility to do. And then also regarding the stipulations and mission statement, mission goals of the commission is competitiveness. We need to have competitive districts when and wherever possible. Two, again, because, as we heard from some of the folks in the Phoenix metro area earlier, that it's in the overall best interest. It should be about ideas and who can mobilize and run the best campaign, not necessarily should an election be decided in a primary by one party or the other. Two, it's definitely best for democracy to have as many competitive districts as possible. And I think the current configuration of competitive districts isn't bad. I think we could do better, but I think the current ones that we have are good. Too. And then to Mr. Gorman's comments and overall the issues to the tribes and the other communities throughout Arizona is I equally think that the Voting Rights Act is of the utmost importance. We don't want our maps or you, Chairwoman, or any of the commissioners to be drawn into a court battle over the maps relating to the Voting Rights Act. Arizona has had a checkered history in that regard. And I think if we can focus on competitiveness and but maintaining the issues surrounding the Voting Rights Act and protecting our minority communities, I think we're going to be in good shape too. So again, I thank you for your time and consideration and look forward to seeing the new maps as they come out. And again, I appreciate your efforts. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. I'm just going to hold it. My name is Phyllis Schiller. I've been a Flagstaff resident. I hate to say this, for 41 years. So I've had a lot of exposure to Northern Arizona and the tremendous growth that has happened in this area. What explains this growth is largely due to one of the 6 criteria you are using to redistrict the state, namely the communities of interest with respect to social and economic commonalities. I'm defining these geographic communities of interest to include the Grand Canyon Village to the north, down to the Verde Valley communities of Jerome, Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Cornville, and Clarkdale to the south, with Sedona in between. I support the submitted legislative map, Ryan 1084, for District 6, and this is why. This north-south corridor comprises ties to tourism and recreational activities not found in any of the large geographic areas of the state. The elevation goes from 8,000 feet down to 3,500 feet above sea level in this corridor. And I'm going to get very concrete what this means to me as a retired individual. Nowhere else can I ski in the morning, play golf in the afternoon, and have lunch in a vineyard patio in the winter, or play golf in the morning, swim at Slide Rock in the afternoon, have dinner along Oak Creek, and then see a classic movie at the Sedona Film Festival Auditorium, or go stargazing at Flagstaff's Lowell Observatory in the evening during the summer months. This geographical corridor provides its residents a kaleidoscope of cultural and recreational experiences unmatched anywhere else. I am not exaggerating this, and this explains the population growth of these communities of interest. Greater Flagstaff can be seen as the urban, and I put this in quotes, center of the corridor, with NAU, major companies such as Gore, and cultural and social, festivals almost every weekend during the summer months. Outlying communities of Kachina Village, Parks, Mountain Air, Fort Valley, and Donny Park are suburban areas of this urban center. Williams to the east and Winslow to the west are becoming bedroom communities to this urban growth. The rest of the corridor represents the rural life of farming, ranching, and laid-back leisure and recreation. The common thread in this corridor is an acceptance of Native American, Hispanic, Asian, and white people sharing activities and coexisting with mutual respect and concern for our fragile environment. Forest fires and the closing of the forest during fire season is met with observance. Water usage limitations are observed. Air quality is monitored as the clean air of this region is so valued, and people are responding with less wood-burning stoves and more gas-powered heating stoves in the winter. In essence, there is a common understanding of the value of this northern Arizona corridor as communities of interest for many of us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ann Heitland. I've spoken to you before at the Community of Interest hearings in Flagstaff and in Window Rock. I represent a group of people, many of whom you have heard from this evening, who support the community of interest ranging from the South Rim of the Grand Canyon through the Verde Valley. And I'm going to be speaking tonight to the test maps that the commissioners adopted earlier this week, as well as to a map, actually 4 maps that were submitted under the username Ryan1084 earlier today. But as I drove over here, were not yet assigned official numbers by the commission. I want to thank you and your consultants for acknowledging the community of interest we represent during the listening tour earlier in this cycle. Your test maps keep Greater Flagstaff together and unite us with the Verde Valley. With regard to the legislative district test map, it makes sense to extend that further north to include the South Rim of the Grand Canyon. The east border of that legislative district test map should be moved to the west, somewhere in the middle of Navajo County. While Winslow shares commercial interests with the Flagstaff area, the eastern portion of Navajo County is different commercially, culturally, politically. The balanced maps submitted today under the test name Ryan 1084 accommodate these changes and also place Williams with LD5, whose population more closely matches the community of interest described by the Williams residents who spoke here during the community of interest hearing earlier. This also might allow you to make some adjustments in the Sun City area, moving that line further to the north. I heard some discussion during your meetings earlier this week about splitting Flagstaff between LD6 and LD7. We do support Mr. Gorman's suggestion that the deviation be allowed to be greater in order to recognize the needs under the Voting Rights Act of allowing our Native American neighbors to elect representatives of their own choosing. However, we are concerned under the Voting Rights Act that by including Flagstaff in the same district with our Native American neighbors, we may experience a voting rights regression, actually reducing the voice of the Native Americans in electing their representatives. Again, I refer you to the map submitted by user Ryan 1084 for a possible solution to this problem. Regarding the congressional maps now for CD2, the southern line should not go to the border as it does in the grid map. And the test map is unacceptable because it would violate the Voting Rights Act. Maps submitted again by user Ryan 1084 address these problems. While the border communities of Arizona deserve representation in Congress that focuses on their interests, our interests in Northern Arizona in environmental, commercial, cultural, and political needs are quite different. Finally, while none of Arizona rural areas want to be with Maricopa County, the Gila River Indian community wants to be with the Northern Arizona tribes, and its leader has expressly said that. We believe that by designing CD2 maps can accommodate that request in a way similar to the 2011 maps. So thank you. Thank you all for sticking with us this evening. Thank you for your service. We know you commissioners are all volunteers, and it's a tremendous service you're doing for the state of Arizona and our communities. Thank you.
Back to Surprise.
Our next speakers are Noel Rosin, Alexis Delgado Garcia, Ariana Reyes, Gina Mendez, and Wesley Crew.
Thank you for allowing me to be here to testify. I'm up in the Wickenburg area. I don't know if you want to pull up that map because I think there's a few things that need to be addressed on this one. Where we are in Wickenburg, we are actually in two counties. We're in both Maricopa and Yavapai. Unfortunately, with the district maps that you have drawn, we're still in we'll eventually, right now, we are presently in two different legislative districts, but in one congressional district. If you go to a part of the map where the 93 and the 89 interchange is, there's a place called Wickenburg Ranch, which was annexed into the town limits. So it is a part of Wickenburg, but on the map, you cut it off via the county line there at Vulture Mine and the 93. So it is in the best interest for Wickenburg to be in one rural district, to all of us to being together. So if there's a way to actually draw these maps to where we can have that part of Wickenburg, you can cut it off around the 89, because Congress is also an area we have in common with. It is also rural. And that would be an ideal thing to stay together. I think a lot of what we have right now, we in LD 13 where we're at, the map that you have right now, LD 13 is Buckeye, it's Tonopah, it's Litchfield Park, it's Goodyear, and those areas. We don't really have anything in common with those areas except for maybe Tonopah. Whitman, Morristown on the map that you have right now, that the grid map, keeping them together with Wickenburg is just fine with us. Okay, they're rural communities. Aguila is also a rural community. I think the current grid map that you have has it going all the way to Siloam, which is also rural. We have a lot in common with them. And then, of course, it loops around to, I believe, Lake Havasu. This is the grid map that you have that I'm speaking about. You have it going all the way up to Lake Havasu and Kingman. Well, Kingman's a long way away from Wickenburg. That being said, we're pretty conservative in our district, okay? Large base is Republican. So when you look at what we have as far as commonalities, Wickenburg is a roping western town, okay? We have rodeo, we have roping, we have, we do have an interesting culture, and it is very mixed because some people have moved up from the valley or moved into the area from other areas, which kind of brings me to my next point. I saw a lot of people testifying that, they want, I've heard the LGBTQ thing, and I've heard all of these things and the progressive left stuff. And you don't cut those people off, but you cut the people off that, are speaking about Americans. We're Americans. I don't look at black, white, purple, orange, because we are Americans. And as Claire said earlier, that's how we have to see ourselves. We're looking at demographics, and this whole thing with the mapping process is supposed to be stuff that we haven't actually in common. We start dividing by race, we start dividing by color, all of that stuff. Of course, we're the human race, so we're supposed to be one race. But the bottom line is the left, you allowed the leftist agenda to hijack this thing, and it's not about that. This is about redistricting and where we're going to be. Like I said, getting back to the redistricting, You said the maps aren't final, but there's a lot of confusion as to when we're going to start seeing the final maps and the draft maps. And like I said, Wickenburg really is kind of a forgotten on these maps. They really are. And if you go up towards the 93 where Congress, like I said, we have commonality with them. So I would rather not be split up congressionally, because the grid map that you have, like I said, splits us up. Okay, right now we're in CD4, and I think the map is going to put us. Can I let me finish my point here? The map that you have, the congressional map, has us currently in CD4. We don't want to lose that. On the Maricopa side, like I said, we're split into 2 counties. And I believe that we really should be in one legislative district, all of Wickenburg, and in the same congressional district. So I hope that you'll look at those areas that I'm talking about. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I will be speaking for Alexis. So my name is Yvonne Dominguez, and I will be speaking on behalf of Arizona Center for Empowerment. And I am from the Maryville area of LD 29. That is where I have grew up in. And from there, I went to Estrella Middle School along with going to Atkinson Middle School. And after that, I went to Maryville High School. And then I graduated of class of 2018. And now I am a current 4-year student that goes to Phoenix College. And I consider myself as a Latina, and I also especially identify myself as an autistic woman. And I am here being the voice for the neurodivergent community, along with including the disabled community, including myself. I am here because I feel that there needs to be changes in the community for more support and more acceptance towards disabled folks like me, but also to know that we have a voice too. And now that I have mentioned this, there has been 2 majority minority Latino congressional districts in Arizona, and we need to make sure to keep 2 to comply with the Voting Rights Act. The hub for one of the congressional districts should be the Latino population in Phoenix, and for the other one of the Latino populations in Tucson. Back to where I grew up, South Glendale and the West Phoenix areas benefits from being represented together. They are all parts of a community of interest, majority Latino areas who share similar challenges and priorities and economic and social interests. Dividing up these communities would really weaken the power of the votes. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey y'all, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Does it sound good? I know that volume was an issue. I guess. But hi y'all, my name's Ariana Reyes. I currently reside in the Central Phoenix area, Central West. I'm in 19th Ave and stuff like that. And I kind of just wanted to talk specifically about Central Phoenix. As I'm 20, I'm a college student. I go to ASU. ASU West, ASU Downtown, which resides in Central Phoenix, and that's as a whole is a hub for academic and economic stuff, and specifically a lot of folks from the West Phoenix area do go to Central Phoenix. It's where we go to work. It's where we go to school. Like I said, I go to school. I would drive there, take the shuttle from West to. I also went to Carl Hayden for high school, so I've been in the area for a while. And I also go there to shop, go to the movies and stuff like that. And it's a diverse area. Like I said, I've known it well. There's Black folks, brown folks, Asians, there's hella different types of people and cultures that reside on Central Phoenix. Which also I wanted to touch on. I know that we're over here in Surprise, and it was a pretty far drive. It was 40 minutes. So maybe in the future we could have a meeting closer to over there, so we can have people like my parents, my classmates, younger folk, people of color in the space, and to have them in the conversation as well, because I feel like that was a lack in this meeting, which is, yeah, anyways. But like I said, I would prefer if y'all would keep Central Phoenix like tied together rather than splitting it up. I said it's a diverse area. We really want to strengthen all the different types of voices in the area and keep that voting power really strong and stuff like that. But yeah, that's me. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Hello. Thank you all for allowing me to be here. My name is Gina Mendez. I live out in Laveen in Legislative District 27. So I'm here to talk about, why it's important to ensure that the Laveen, South Mountain, South Phoenix area is held together. And so just to tell you a little bit about where I grew up from, on the south side. So I live right there south of 35th Ave and Baseline, in between Baseline and Dobbins. Just a few homes behind me, it is South Phoenix. Just a few homes above me, it's still South Phoenix. I went to Southwest Elementary in the Roosevelt School District. I went to Cesar Chavez High School out in Laveen, and I also went to South Mountain Community College on 24th Street and Baseline. The folks that are out here have common things that we care about. We share common experiences and are dealing with similar issues. As you all know, Latinos are now more than 30% of Arizona's population, and it's our voting strength, and we must not let it be diluted. That has happened because of the work of various organizations who care about ensuring that Black and Brown and Indigenous folks are voting. We have seen that there's a lot of voter suppression that has happened for decades. We go out into the schools and talk to parents, talk to youth, to ensure that they know about the power in voting and how decisions get made if we do not participate, if we are not civically involved. There have been 2 majority-minority Latino congressional districts in Arizona, and we need to make sure that we keep the 2 to comply with the Voting Rights Act. What are the consequences if we do not do that? A lawsuit. I work hard for my money, y'all. My mom works 2 jobs. She's a minimum wage worker. A lot of the people on the south side in South Phoenix and Laveen have more than 1 job. We do not want our tax-paying dollars to go to a lawsuit. We want representation. We want to make sure that the issues that we care about are addressed. I organize in the community. I work with a lot of the schools in Laveen, in Phoenix Union, in South Phoenix. Have you all ever received a call from a school because you do not know what to do if a parent is being detained or deported? I do. South Phoenix looks like me, not like a lot of the people who are here. The consequences of splitting up these communities is we are going to see that our issues that we care about do not get addressed. We're dealing with the school to prison pipeline, criminalization in our communities, and family separation. So I urge you that Laveen, South Phoenix, South Mountain be kept together. They share many of the similar concerns and interests, including being majority Latino. And in addition to that, it's the South Side, y'all. And if you have not been to the South Side, go a little down west to 59th Ave and Baseline. It is still the South Side. So thank you.
Hello, Commission, Executive Directors. Hi, my name is Wes Crew. I spoke during the satellite location of Tucson. I firstly wanted to thank the chairwoman for the comments that she made earlier about how tentative these maps are, as I think that statements like that being continued really incentivizes the public to keep giving you guys good data to use for the furthering of these maps. So I would like to respect you and say thank you. I would also like to thank the Commission for meeting with us and the Arizona Center for Empowerment. It means a lot that you hear our voices and that you hear us out and that you let us voice our concerns. Regarding those concerns, the one that we still remain prominent about, as well as others, as some of the materials that we would like to see distributed in Spanish, as well as the materials that you currently have in English, such as the YouTube playlist that you have for the Redistricting Hub. The Redistricting Hub is a technical software to use if you're not tech savvy. It makes it even harder when there's not materials that aren't in both languages. So I still suggest that those YouTube videos be submitted and be uploaded in Spanish as well. But regarding the congressional districts, I am from Tucson. I'm here representing my family that's here in Phoenix. I'm a proud citizen of Adelita Grijalva's District 5. So I fully support the Arizona Latino Coalition for Fair Districts, as well as their maps. But regarding here in Maricopa County, I support a greater portion of Glendale, the further west and south of Northern Ave. This would benefit being a part of a district that also includes West Phoenix, Maryville. Some major streets that would be great boundaries for these would be Camelback and Northern Ave. The residents of this part of Glendale share much in common with those parts of Maryville and West Phoenix and have modest incomes. But in regards to the repairs for grid 7 and 8, the communities along South Mountain Range should be kept together fully. That includes Laveen, South Mountain, and Guadalupe. Connecting Guadalupe to the rest of those communities preserves their presence in a district with other minority populations that are in Laveen and South Mountain. These areas are all connected to natural boundaries along South Mountain Park and Preserve. Once again, thank you for the jobs that you're doing. This is a very hard thing to do and have a lot of respect for the time that you put in. I just ask that you continue to take it as seriously as you have and adhere to some of the concerns that we have regarding the Spanish population and their ability to have the equal accessibility to some of these district maps. Thank you.
Our last three speakers are Betsabeth Rosas, Tim Castro, and Lady Robledo.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Betsabeth Rosas, and I'm here with Arizona Center for Empowerment. And I will be speaking for the Phoenix District of South Glendale and West Phoenix, Maryville. Overall, Latinos are now more than 30% of Arizona's population, and our voting strength must not be diluted. South Glendale and the West Phoenix Maryville area benefit from being represented together. They're all parts of a community of interest, majority Latino areas who share similar challenges and priorities in economic and social interests. Dividing up these communities will weaken the power of their votes. As somebody who has grown up here and lived here, I have seen the struggle since I was the age of 8 years old. It doesn't matter what age you are, from the age of 8 to the age of 70, you can see the struggles that people go through. I have seen how people from my community have struggled and not received the same attention in our schools. We don't have the same amount of resources. We don't have the same amount of teachers who are there to support us. And the amount of resources around us aren't the same as a neighborhood up here in Surprise or somewhere else in Scottsdale. And people here in Phoenix, South Glendale, and Maryville are people or a community, people of color, people who have gone through the same experiences and who need somebody who can stand up for them and speak about their struggles and who understand where they come from. We ask that you don't break up these boundaries because we are together and we have pride in who we are, and we just need somebody who can speak up for us and who can say anything that has been through our lives and who can help us out. Thank you.
You know what? I have a question, and it's so late, and we're all so tired. But you actually piqued a thought of mine. That is, we're starting to get maps from the Latino district, from the Latino community. Are there school districts that are particularly important to empowering the youth of the Latino community? And will that be communicated within those maps that the communities are submitting? You don't have to answer that, but based on what you just shared about the youth and the education, it was something that popped into my mind. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Tip of the hat
for you guys to like, I was trying to talk to my friends about this topic and it's quite the not sexy topic. So, wow. To answer your question, what comes to mind is the Peoria School District as far as it goes to when you're looking at why they have not been successful in passing school bonds so many more times than they have been in being successful in passing school bonds. And that is because you have a large elderly population that goes to the voting booths and consistently knocks down those opportunities to put tax dollars. Great, we know that it's a bond against it. So they tend to not pass those. And so the Peoria School District for the longest time was suffering from having inadequate funding. And I think that's a very good point to bring up. And that's the kind of point I want to bring up. I am a native of Arizona. My name is Timothy Castro. Representation matters so much. My grandmother's family was one of the first families displaced with the extension of the I-17 North. Displaced and then put into an area that we now pass because it's in the shadow of the airport. And there's no economic development opportunities there. It's barely starting to come back through gentrification. Driving here I'm an LD24, driving here, I reminded myself of the extension of Grand Avenue and that massive wall that they built up that closed off El Mirage from economic development. Now there's I grew up to Peoria High School. 83rd Avenue and Peoria was cotton fields. There was nothing. My family was given land because they're a migrant family. That land was taken by the Boys and Girls Scouts to put up their building in Peoria. All of these things are predicated on this concept of representation. There's folks here that said golf courses are important. There are folks here that have said a unique voice, a monolithic voice is important. And I disagree with that because we do need to have diversity. We do need to have representation. And these communities, regardless of how they identify themselves, LGBTQ, disabled, however they identify themselves, those are very important topics. And you have a very important, horrible job. I found out right now you guys are being volunteers. My goodness. I was hoping that was not the case. But I just want to, and I want to say, I do support the Latino districts because I am a product of Arizona. And I do agree with the Arizona Latino Redistricting Coalition because it is important that we keep these voices in place because we know that the Latino population is only going to continue to grow. And the most harm we can do is try to keep that voice down. That voice has to be at that golf course and say, well, what if we do 3% less water? We saw the reaction. It was a monolithic response. So I know my time is short. I just really want to implore that we just need to have these representations. We need these districts to be drawn fairly, accurately, and for not just today, but for the future representation, because we don't want to continue to exclude communities from economic development. And that's exactly what happens sometimes. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lady Robledo. I'm actually really excited to be here. When I learned about how redistricting worked, it was 2011. I was in college and I had just missed the last redistricting. So I had to wait 10 years to be here again. I think that, I really want to say thank you to all the young people who are here instead of enjoying their nice, cool evening, instead of like watching TV, being on their phones, they're here because they care. And so I just really thank them for being here and empowering us to be here. A lot of the points I wanted to make have already been made. We do not want to be split up out in the West. We want to be able to elect the officials that represent those communities. I'm talking about West Phoenix. And I think this is my first time here trying to understand the maps, trying to understand the tables. And I think one of the things that just, came up to my mind is seeing how little, how many districts the Latino community are majority in is very little. And there are many, many districts where we have a white majority. And so I just want to point that out. I don't know if I'm reading the maps wrong or whatever, but even in the places where we have a higher representation, we're not a majority. So what does that mean? It means that even though for the last 30 years of my life, I haven't been represented in Arizona, and congressionally as a brown Latina, it means that for the next years, I probably won't be represented. So I really want us to like really understand those numbers. I might be looking at it wrong, but the way I see it is I see those numbers and they look horrible for me. And for the next 10 years. The other thing I wanted to just point out is I really want to see you all in Maryville. It would be amazing if you could hold one of these in Spanish. It would be amazing if you all can go to one of our native nations and hold one of these in their language, because it's not fair that we're not doing that. And it's not fair that like satellite locations get canceled last minute, and it's just not, that's not inclusive. And if this is about representation, like that's already a big mistake. Thank you all. And I know that this is going to be hard, and then no, you're not going to get everybody, not everybody's going to be happy, but I really hope that you take into account all of the people that have historically been unrepresented historically. And I hope that you really take that into account when you have to decide where to draw that line. And I hope that you finally give some reparations to those communities. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank our robust state for showing up and expressing your voices. It's been truly an honor to receive the awesome feedback. With that, we are going to move to agenda item number 3, which is adjournment. I encourage everybody to please go online and submit a map using our mapping software at irc.az.gov. Our next business meeting is at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, October 12th, and our next decision meeting is at 8 a.m. on Friday, October 15th. Please go online again at irc.az.gov for more information. With that, we will adjourn the meeting, and I look forward to seeing many of you at our upcoming hearings. Good night.